Welcome to the Quiet Chronicles, the Witness series, where history is not only remembered from a distance, but entered as a living world. Tonight, you are not being handed a list of facts about early humans, nor a cold timeline of tools, bones, caves, and migrations. You are being taken closer than that, into the shape of an ordinary day, into the work of hands, the warmth of fire, the search for food, the making of shelter, the quiet intelligence of people who lived long before cities, kings, writing, or roads. Inside a small hide pouch, your fingers search by feel before your eyes have fully accepted the dark. A twist of dry grass, a stone edge kept smooth from use, a strip of bark folded around something too small to look important, yet important enough that Seela told you twice not to lose it. Around you, bodies sleep under worked skins, close enough that warmth passes from one life to another. The air near the ground holds the old breath of smoke, animal hide, damp earth, and yesterday's cooked fat. Your hands know the task before your thoughts do. Fire is not a miracle here. It is a responsibility. Someone carried it before you. Someone fed it through the night. Someone will need it when the cold lifts and the day begins, asking for food, tools, shelter, patience, and memory. If this journey brings you closer to the old human world, you can let the next weekly episode find you here again. A quiet like or subscription helps this fire keep burning for other travelers. The pouch opens, the ash waits, and the smallest red life in the camp is placed into your care. Chapter 1. The Fire That Must Not Die. The ash is still warm when your fingers reach into it, not hot enough to bite, not cold enough to mean failure, but warm in the hidden way that tells you something living remains beneath the grey. Beside your knee, the bark cup waits with its little bed of dry grass. The camp around you holds its breath in sleep, and for a moment the whole world seems to have narrowed to the careful space between your hand and the buried coal. Seela crouches near the hearth. Before you notice, she has crossed the shelter. Her shadow bends over yours, thin and steady in the dark. "Not from the top," she says, her voice low enough that the sleepers do not stir. "From the side, Aruk. Let it breathe before you ask it to live." Your fingers change angle. Ash gives way softly, and the coal shows itself as a dull red eye under the grey. It is smaller than the nail of your thumb. A careless breath could scatter it. A careless hand could cover it too heavily and leave the camp with only cold stones, stiff hides, and the long work of coaxing fire from wood and patience. Mira shifts under a skin near Seela's feet, awake because children hear the smallest changes when adults think they are silent. Her hair is flattened on one side, and one hand has found its way out from the warmth. She watches the coal as if it is an animal that may run. When she reaches toward the ash, Seela's hand closes around her wrist before the child touches anything. "Not yet," Seela says. Fire likes small hands too much. Mira pulls back, more offended than frightened. A few sleepers turn in their hides, but no one fully wakes. Outside the shelter, the dark has the weight of stone, and the cold presses through every seam that was not repaired well enough the day before. Inside, bodies lie close together under skins scraped clean, softened by use, and patched where old holes had widened. Breath moves from mouth to hide and hide to air, slow and pale. The smell is the first thing that settles fully into you. Old smoke lies low in the shelter, thick where the ash has kept it through the night. Beneath it rests the damp scent of earth pressed by sleeping bodies, the sour edge of worked hide, and the heavy trace of fat that clung to yesterday's stones after the last pieces of meat were lifted away. The air tastes faintly of charcoal when you breathe through your mouth. Even before the fire returns, the camp smells like warmth remembered. You slide the coal into the bark cup, with a fold of ash around it. The dry grass darkens where it touches the ember, then waits. Sela does not hurry you. That is one of the things that makes her corrections harder to bear than scolding. She lets the mistake approach slowly enough for you to see it before she stops you, and because she gives you that chance, your own hands feel responsible for learning. Near the shelter opening, Nara sits with one knee raised, already awake, already working. You had thought he was sleeping, but the old tracker seems to pass through sleep the way smoke passes through reeds, never fully held by it. A spear shaft rests across his thigh. Without looking up, he turns it, feels along the wood, and then reaches toward the one you shaped yesterday. "Bring that here," he says. The words are not sharp, but they carry weight. You set the bark cup carefully beside Sela and crawl across the packed ground. Nara takes your shaft, presses his thumb against the place where the wood thickens too much, and moves your hand there instead of explaining. His palm is rough, cracked near the base of the fingers, and steady in a way that makes your own grip feel young. "This part will argue with the air," he says. "Make it stop arguing." Tovan hears that and gives a quiet laugh from under a hide. Aruk makes even wood stubborn. Wood was stubborn before Aruk, Nara says. The answer leaves no room for more laughter, though Tovan's smile remains visible in the dimness. He pushes himself upright, hair loose, shoulders still wrapped in a skin, and begins tying a cord around his wrist as if he woke only because there might be work worth turning into a contest. You take the shaft back from Nara and feel the raised part with your thumb. Yesterday it had seemed smooth enough. Under Nara's touch, and now under yours, the floor becomes obvious, almost loud. The fire asks for you again. Sela has lowered her face near the bark cup, feeding the coal with a breath so thin it barely moves the grass. A thread of smoke lifts and folds back on itself. Mira watches from behind Sela's arm, her earlier offense already forgotten, her attention fixed on the red point growing under the ash. When Sela nods, you return to the hearth and add the smallest curl of bark. The grass catches slowly. It does not flare. It gathers color from the coal, reddens, and lets a narrow line of flame open along its edge. In that little light, the shelter becomes more than shapes. A shoulder under a brown hide, a sleeping child's foot near a bundle of bone tools, a row of drying sinew hanging from a bent rib, the flat stone where fat had cooled in cloudy streaks, your own hands, grey with ash, careful and not yet trusted enough to be careless. Outside, the first voice of the morning comes from a bird hidden somewhere near the riverbank. The sound is thin and brief. It enters the shelter and vanishes into the smoke. Sela hears it and turns her head slightly, not because the bird matters by itself, but because every sound belongs to something, and every something belongs to the day's first decisions. "River will be hard at the edge," she says. Tovan rubs his eyes. "Then we do not go to the edge." Mira, still watching the flame, says, "Then how do we find roots?" Sela looks at Tovan, not Mira. "We go carefully." The small exchange settles the morning into its shape. Some will go toward the river. Some will stay to repair what the night loosened. Someone must check the stored bones. Someone must cut more dry grass from the place where the wind did not reach. Someone must look for the marks of animals that passed while the camp slept. No single command moves the group. Need moves it. Cold moves it. Hunger moves it. Memory moves it. Because every task has been done before by hands that are gone and hands that still wake beside you. You feed the new flame into the hearth while Sela lifts a larger piece of wood into place. The branch is not fully dry, and for a while it gives more smoke than heat. Your eyes water, but you keep your face near enough to judge whether the flame will hold. Mira coughs once and hides it badly. Sila passes her a strip of yesterday's cooked root, and the child accepts it with the solemn expression of someone given an adult duty. Nara stands at last. He is not tall in the way stories make important men tall. His importance is quieter than height. It is in how other people leave space for him to listen, how Tovan stops smiling when Nara studies the shelter opening, how Sila waits for his eyes to return from whatever he has heard outside. The lines beside his mouth are deep, but not soft. They look made by weather, smoke, and years of holding back words until they are needed. He steps into the open, and the cold follows him in. For a moment, the entrance shows only a dark band of ground and the faint grey beyond it. You see his head turn toward the river, then toward the higher land where the old grass grows in pale clumps. When he returns, his hand rests briefly on the top of the shelter frame, testing its give. "Tracks near the bank," he says. "Small ones. Fresh enough." Tovan reaches for his spear too quickly, and Nara's look stops him before speech does. No one laughs this time. Small tracks do not mean small importance. They mean something moved close enough to matter. They mean food, warning, direction, a story pressed into mud while human eyes were closed. Sila takes up the bark cup again and covers part of the coal bed with ash, saving what does not need to burn yet. Watching her, you feel the old astonishment return, the one that never fully leaves no matter how many mornings you wake inside it. Fire can be open flame, cooking heat, warning light, coal under ash, memory in a cup. It can be carried like a secret. It can be lost like a careless word. It can turn a frozen morning into a place where children eat and old people wake without pain in their hands. "Aruk," Sila says. You look up. She holds out the bark cup. Inside it, under a careful fold of ash, one coal remains alive for the next hearth, the next task, the next place that will need warmth before the sun reaches it. Her eyes rest on you long enough for the weight of the thing to pass from her hand into yours. It is not praise. It is better and harder than praise. The cup sits against your palms, light as bark, heavy as trust. Mira leans close, but this time she does not reach. Tovan gathers willow cord and a skin bag with more seriousness than he wore on waking. Nara waits at the shelter mouth, looking toward the river path where the ground will be hard at the edge and the small tracks will either fade or become clearer. You rise with the coal carried under ash, and the camp begins to move around you. Chapter 2. Breath over the coal. The coal wakes slowly when Sila breathes over it. Under its fold of ash, the red returns first as a dull pulse, then as a narrow brightness that finds the dry grass and waits there as if deciding whether the morning has earned flame. Your hands hold the bark cup steady while Sila lowers her face near it, and the breath she gives is so careful that even Mira, crouched beside her, seems to hold her own breath in respect. A thin line of smoke rises, leans, and folds back toward your wrist. The grass darkens, reddens, and opens into a small tongue of flame. Sila feeds it bark fiber, no larger than a curled fingernail, and only when that catches does she let you add the next piece. Around the hearth, the camp continues waking in fragments. A cough under a hide, the scrape of a foot against packed earth, Tovan muttering as he searches for a cord he slept beside and still manages to lose. Not too much, Sila says without looking at you. Your fingers stop above the flame. The piece of bark between them suddenly feels enormous. Mira smiles because she heard the correction before you made the mistake. Sila sees the smile and turns it toward work. Find the grass with the pale stem, she tells the child. Not the damp one, the pale one. Mira crawls toward the bundle near the shelter wall, proud enough to move too quickly, then slows when Sela's eyes follow her. You watch the child sort through dry stems with the seriousness of someone choosing bones for a tool. Her small fingers pause over the wrong handful, then shift to the right one. She brings it back with her chin raised, and Sela accepts it as if accepting something valuable from an adult. The fire grows without haste. It takes the dry grass, then the bark, then a narrow twig that Tovan finally offers after finding his cord tied around his own ankle. The first real warmth reaches your knuckles. It spreads into the cracks of your skin and loosens the stiffness left there by sleep, ash, and cold ground. The bark cup, empty now of its living coal, rests beside your knee like a shell after the creature inside has moved on. At the edge of the shelter, Nara returns from the grey outside with damp on the lower half of his leggings. He says nothing at first. He presses 2 fingers to the shaft he corrected earlier, then looks toward you, not at your face but at your hands, as if the morning's answer is written there. The bank kept prints, he says. Small, more than one. Tovan straightens. Hair? Maybe. That is almost meat. Sela lifts the new flame into the main hearth. Almost meat does not fill a stomach. It fills hope, Tovan says. Hope cooks badly, she answers. Mira laughs, then hides the laugh inside a bite of cold root. You feel your own mouth turn before you can stop it. The warmth of the hearth has begun to gather people toward it, not in a crowd, but in a loose ring of need. One person brings a cracked bone to be split later. Another pulls a hide aside to shake loose grit. Someone near the back of the shelter ties a carrying sling across one shoulder and tests the knot with the impatience of hunger. The day divides itself without anyone naming the division. Nara will look again at the tracks, but not alone. Sela will go toward the river edge for roots, reeds, and the dry stalks that can be twisted later. Tovan will come, because stillness has already begun to trouble him. Mira will be allowed to follow only as far as Sela allows, which means she will follow exactly to the line where danger begins, and then pretend not to see the line. You are given the bark cup again, this time filled with a guarded coal under ash, because another small fire may be needed away from the shelter if the wind changes or someone's hands become too stiff for fine work. The cold outside receives you without anger. It is simply there, laid across the ground and waiting in the spaces between grass stems. Behind you, the shelter keeps its low shape against the pale morning. Smoke leaks from its opening and moves toward the river path in a soft, uncertain line. For a moment, you look back at it and feel how easily a camp becomes invisible from a distance. No more than skins, sticks, breath, and smoke, unless you know where human life chooses to hold itself. Sela walks first. She does not hurry, and because she does not hurry, everyone behind her must notice more. The ground slopes gently toward the river, where frost clings to the grass in dull white beads. Your feet find the hardened places between softer patches. The bark cup sits in both hands, warmer on one side than the other, and you turn it now and then to keep the coal settled under its cover of ash. The cup's bark is cold where your fingers first touch it, then slowly damp from your skin. Its rim presses a shallow line into your palm. Under the ash, the coal gives a small, secret heat, not enough to warm you, only enough to remind you that warmth can travel hidden. Wet grass brushes your ankles, and cold threads itself through the seams of your foot wrapping. When you kneel to pass beneath a low branch, your fingers close harder around the cup, feeling bark, ash, and the sleeping point of fire inside. Sela stops near a place where the ground darkens. She raises one hand, and the little line of walkers behind her settles. Tovan's foot hovers, then lowers more carefully than he intended. Mira bumps softly against your side and whispers an apology to the bark cup instead of to you. Ahead, the river is not fully visible yet, but its presence is in the air, in the colder breath moving along the hollow, in the smell of wet stone and old reeds. Here, Seela says. She crouches beside a cluster of low leaves, their edges dark from frost. Mira leans forward at once. Seela catches her sleeve this time, not her wrist. Look first. I am looking, with your wanting, not with your eyes. Mira's face tightens. The words sting because they are true. You know that feeling well enough to look away from the child and down at the leaves instead. Hunger makes every root seem larger. Cold makes every dry stem seem useful. Wanting is a heat of its own, and sometimes it melts the edges of things that should remain sharp. Seela points to the base of the plant. This one, maybe. That one. No. See the red at the stem. Mira squints. Tovan leans over her shoulder, pretending not to be interested. The red means bad? Mira asks. The red means wait, Seela says. There are plants that tell the truth only after they hurt you. No one asks for a longer lesson. Seela has already said enough for the morning to hold. She loosens the soil with a narrow digging stick, working around the root rather than through it. When she lifts it free, dark earth clings to the pale flesh. She breaks a thin end, smells it, and passes it to you. The scent is faint, bitter, and familiar in the way food can be familiar before it is loved. Tovan makes a face. That will not make anyone brave. Hunger does not care about bravery, you say. The words leave your mouth before you know whether they are good. Seela glances at you, and the glance is brief, but it stays. Tovan looks ready to answer, then decides the root is a safer enemy and begins scraping earth from another one with too much force. Seela lets him struggle until the root snaps. Only then does she reach over, take the broken half, and place it in Mira's basket. Still food, she says. The riverbank lies a little farther down, where the frost gives way to damp ground. Reeds grow in clumps along the edge, some pale and dry enough for tying, some green at the base, some broken by animals that came in the dark. You carry the bark cup to a flat stone above the wettest place and set it where it cannot tip. Seela notices the choice. Nara would have noticed whether you chose badly. Seela notices that you chose well and says nothing, which may be the kinder burden. Mira begins gathering the pale reeds she was shown, snapping them too high at first, then lower when Seela taps the place with her finger. Tovan cuts longer stems and binds them in loose bundles. You work beside them, separating what will bend from what will break. The useful ones do not always look strongest. Some of the thick reeds split too easily, while thinner ones hold their length and curve without complaint. From beyond the bend, Nara's low call reaches you. It is not alarm. It is a sound meant to gather attention without startling birds or children. Seela looks up, then gestures for Mira to stay behind her. Tovan takes 2 steps before remembering to wait. You lift the bark cup again and follow Seela toward the damp bank. The tracks are there where the mud has softened under a skin of thaw. Small prints, close together, crossing from the reed bed toward a darker gap beneath exposed roots. Not one animal, maybe 2. Nara crouches beside them, his hand resting on his knee, his head tilted slightly as if listening to marks that have no sound. He does not touch the prints. He lets them remain whole until everyone who needs to see them has seen them. Tovan whispers, "Hair." Nara's eyes stay on the mud. Maybe. You said maybe before. It is still maybe. Tovan exhales, but softly. Even his impatience has learned to lower its voice near tracks. Mira leans around Sela's leg, her basket of reeds forgotten at her feet. The child's eyes move from print to print. You watch her trying to follow the direction, trying to turn marks into movement inside her head. The effort makes her face older for a moment. "What if it comes back?" she asks. Nara's hand moves once, not quite a gesture, more a settling of the air. Then it finds what it left. And if something follows it, then we learn that too. The answer does not comfort her exactly. It gives her a place to put the fear. That is different and perhaps more useful. You look past the prints into the reeds. The ground there holds many small disturbances. A bent stem, a rubbed patch of mud, a place where frost has been broken by a body low to the ground. No single mark tells the whole story. Each one waits for the others. Your hand tightens around the bark cup, and under the ash the coal shifts slightly, a hidden life inside a carried shell. Sela returns to the roots before the looking becomes too long. Food still has to be gathered. Fiber still has to be cut. The fire in the cup still has to remain alive. The tracks will wait for Nara's slower attention, and perhaps for yours, if he decides your eyes have earned the chance. For now, the day gives you work that can be held, sorted, and carried. The sun has not climbed high, but the camp already feels far behind. You can see its smoke above the grass, faint and patient, continuing without you. The sight steadies something in your chest. Behind that smoke are sleeping hides now shaken out, bone tools being gathered, old people warming their fingers, and the first flame you helped raise settling into the hearth. Ahead are small tracks, wet ground, roots under frost, reeds for binding, and a river that keeps secrets in mud. When the baskets are heavier and Mira's cheeks have reddened from cold, Sela gives the sign to turn back. Tovan lifts 2 bundles of reeds at once to prove something no one asked him to prove. One bundle slips and scatters pale stems across the ground. Mira laughs openly this time, and even Sela lets her mouth soften before she bends to gather them. At the bank, Nara remains crouched near the prints. He has not followed them yet. He looks at you when you approach, then at the bark cup in your hands. Still alive? You tilt the cup so he can see the ash, the faint red kept beneath it. Still alive. He nods. It is a small thing. It reaches you anyway. Before leaving, he marks the place beside the tracks with a reed pushed lightly into the mud, not through the print, only near it. The reed leans toward the darker gap beneath the roots. By the time the camp has eaten and the first tasks are done, someone will come back. Perhaps the prints will have softened. Perhaps they will have sharpened as the frost leaves the ground. Perhaps they will lead nowhere worth going. You look once more at the small tracks near the thawing bank, and the morning seems to gather itself around them. Chapter 3. The Small Tracks. The small tracks hold their shape a little better when the frost leaves the mud. What had looked like dim marks at the edge of morning now shows itself with more patience. 2 narrow feet pressed close together, a drag of damp fur or tail between reeds. One place where the animal paused before choosing the darker gap beneath exposed roots. Nara crouches beside the bank, not touching anything, and the rest of you arrange yourselves around his stillness as if the ground has become a hearth. The reed he placed earlier leans where he left it. Its shadow lies across the mud without crossing the prints. Tovan stands behind you with his weight shifting from one foot to the other, eager for movement, while Mira keeps close to Sela and tries to see around her knees. The baskets of roots and reeds have been carried back to camp, but Nara asked you to return with him, and the asking has stayed inside your chest like a coal under ash. "Tell me where it went," he says. You look at the prints first, then at the reeds, then at the dark opening beneath the roots. The answer seems easy enough to be dangerous. "There," you say, pointing toward the gap. Nara does not look at your finger. That is where it stopped being easy to see. Tovan gives a soft breath through his nose, almost laughter, but he keeps it small. Sela does not correct you. Mira watches your face more than the ground, as if your mistake has become part of her own lesson. Heat rises into your neck despite the cold air moving along the bank. Nara shifts one knee in the mud and points with a stem of grass. Again. This time you do not hurry toward the obvious gap. Your eyes return to the first print and move slowly from one mark to the next. The mud near the roots is broken, yes, but a reed to the left has bent against the direction of the others. Beyond it, a bead of water trembles on a stem where something brushed past. A lower patch of grass lies pressed, not down toward the hole, but sideways, toward the shallower part of the bank. The world narrows around small things. A broken rim of mud, a darkened place where frost has melted under a warm body, a reed bruised pale where it bent, the dull shine of water in a print no wider than 2 fingers. Your eyes begin to move the way hands move over a tool edge, testing, returning, feeling for the line hidden inside the surface. "Not the hole," you say at last. Nara waits. "It went left, through there." Mira leans farther, then catches herself before Sela has to pull her back. Tovan steps to see from your angle, and for once he does not speak. Nara places the grass stem beside the bent reed and nods once, no more than that. The nod is small enough that another person might miss it. You do not. "Maybe hair," he says. Maybe not. Small body, moving low, not frightened yet. "Not frightened?" Mira asks. If it was frightened, the ground would show hurry. Mira looks at the marks with new suspicion, as if the animal has hidden its feelings from her on purpose. Sela touches the child's shoulder, and that is enough to keep her still. Nara rises slowly, knees damp, hand resting on his thigh for a breath before he straightens. Age lives in him that way, appearing in the pause between one motion and the next, then disappearing once he begins to move. You follow the line of the animal into the reeds. Nara goes first, stepping where the ground is firm enough to take him without swallowing the edges of older marks. He does not move like someone hunting a prize. He moves like someone reading a sentence that may end before it gives meaning. Behind him, you try to place your feet where his have already pressed the grass, and the effort makes every step feel chosen. The river keeps itself half hidden beyond the reeds. You hear it more than see it, a low sliding sound beneath thin ice and open water. The bank smells wet, colder than the camp, touched with old leaves and the faint rot of plants that have spent the winter folding into mud. Sela cuts a few usable stems as she walks, never letting a path give only one kind of gift. Tovan carries them under one arm, restless but obedient to Nara's pace. After a short distance, the marks thin. The animal crossed a patch of harder ground where prints do not hold. Nara stops before the trail disappears completely and lets the silence lengthen. You know better now than to fill it too quickly. Your hands hang at your sides, ash still caught in the lines of your fingers from the morning fire, and you find yourself noticing Nara's hands again. The way they hover over the ground without touching. The way one finger curls slightly as if holding an invisible thread. "Lost," Tovan says. Nara glances at him. Not yet. It left no feet. Feet are not the only part of a body. The words settle into the reeds. You look again. At first there is nothing, only grass, water, mud, pale stems, the low tangle of roots. Then a single seed head hangs lower than the others. A narrow path between two clumps seems almost natural until you notice how the broken stems face the same way. Farther ahead, on a dark root, there is one tiny smear of wet mud where no mud should be. You point, but this time you do not speak immediately. Nara follows the line of your arm. Sila follows Nara's eyes. Mira follows everyone, late but fierce with concentration. There, you say. Nara steps closer and kneels near the root. There. Tovan shifts the reed bundle under his arm. So we follow mud now. We follow what the animal gave us, Nara says. The answer is not meant to shame him, but Tovan receives it that way. His jaw tightens, then loosens. For a breath, you think he will answer badly. Instead, he looks at the root, the smear, the pressed stems, and something in him gives way, not surrender exactly, more like a knot softening after water reaches it. It gave very little, he says. Nara's mouth moves almost into a smile. Then take little. The trail leads toward a shallow hollow where the reeds thin and the ground lifts slightly above the wettest mud. There, beneath a leaning clump of grass, you find droppings no larger than hard berries and a scatter of clipped stems. It is not a kill, not a feast, not the kind of discovery that fills a story told loudly beside the fire. It is something smaller and more useful, proof of a place where small animals come often enough to make returning worthwhile. Sila crouches and studies the clipped stems. They like this edge. They like not being seen, Tovan says. So do we, Mercedes, she answers. Mira touches the side of your sleeve. If it is small, why do we care so much? The question is honest, and because it is honest, no one laughs. Nara looks at the hollow, then toward the camp smoke faint behind you, then at the child. Because hunger is made of small spaces, he says. A stomach does not ask whether food came with a story. Mira thinks about that. Her face does not show whether she likes the answer. Children often prefer the world to be simpler than adults allow it to be, but she stores the words anyway. You can almost see her doing it, placing them somewhere inside herself where they may become useful later. Sila cuts more reeds from the edge, choosing those that bend cleanly near the base. She hands some to you, and the work gives your hands a place to rest from looking. The stems are cool and faintly damp. Their outer skin resists the first pressure of the blade, then opens into pale fiber. You lay them together with their cut ends aligned, because Sila's eye will find disorder even when her hands are busy elsewhere. The sun lifts enough to bring a weak brightness into the hollow. It does not warm much, but it changes the colors of things. Mud becomes brown instead of black. Frost becomes water. The reeds show yellow at their dry tips and green near the hidden places where life has kept itself waiting. A small insect crawls along one stem, slow from cold, and Mira bends close to watch it until Sila tells her not to breathe on the bundle. You think of the coal carried under ash. You think of the root lifted whole because Sila worked around it instead of through it. You think of the spear shaft that argued with the air and the small raised place your thumb had failed to know. The day has begun to feel less like a path from one task to another and more like a hide stretched between many stakes. Pull one place badly and another place changes. Nara marks the hollow with a bent reed and a stone placed beside it, ordinary enough that a stranger would see nothing, clear enough that someone from your camp will remember. No trap is set yet. No decision is made loudly. The place is simply entered into the band's memory, and because your eyes helped find it, a little of that memory now sits in you. Tovan couches beside the clipped stems and runs his thumb over one. Small food, he says, but the old mockery has thinned. Food, Seela says. He nods once. Food. The word becomes larger after he says it the second time. Not grand, not exciting, but larger in the way a basket becomes larger after the first root drops into it. Nara stands and looks toward the higher bank, where willow grows in a pale scatter beyond the reeds. He points with his chin, and Seela follows the direction. We cut before we go back, she says. Toven's face brightens. Finally, something that does not run away in mud. The willow may still defeat you, Seela says. Mira laughs again, and this time Toven lets her. The mood changes without breaking the quiet. Work has a way of doing that when it moves from guessing to gathering. You leave the hollow behind, but the marks remain in your mind. Small tracks, bent reed, mud on root, clipped stem, droppings like hard berries. The animal itself has never appeared, yet it has changed the morning. The willow patch stands on slightly higher ground, where the roots grip more firmly and the wind has dried the upper stems. Seela tests the rods with her hand before cutting. Too brittle, she leaves. Too thick, she leaves. The ones she chooses bend with a living curve, pale under the outer bark, strong enough to hold shape without becoming stubborn. You cut where she shows you, low and clean, and stack the rods with their narrow ends together. Your hands learn the difference slowly. One rod splits because you twist it while cutting. Another is too old and breaks with a dry little sound. Seela says nothing about the first mistake. Nara says nothing about the second. Their silence leaves room for your fingers to understand what your pride would rather ignore. Mira wants to carry 3 rods and is given one. She carries it as if it is a spear, then as if it is a walking stick, then as if it is a sleeping child. Toven gathers the longer pieces and binds them with reed fiber, making the knot too large at first, then smaller after Seela looks at it. You notice that he accepts correction more easily when everyone's hands are full. By the time the bundle is ready, the sun has climbed enough to show the camp's smoke more clearly. It rises beyond the low ground in a thin grey thread, patient and continuous. The sight pulls you back before your feet turn. Behind that smoke, someone is scraping hide. Someone is warming stones. Someone is waiting for the roots, the reeds, the willow, the news of tracks, and the coal still guarded in the bark cup. Nara takes the front on the return. Seela walks behind Mira. Toven carries the largest bundle because he chose it before understanding its weight. You carry a smaller bundle of cut willow rods across your shoulder, and the rods shift with each step, tapping lightly against one another in a rhythm that follows you up from the riverbank. The hollow with the small tracks falls behind, but it does not leave. It travels in the way your eyes move now, catching bent grass, dark soil, broken frost, the small messages of bodies that passed before you arrived. The world has not become safer or easier. It has become more written. As the camp rises ahead, the willow rods rest warm against your shoulder where your body has touched them. Soon they will be bent, tied, and made to hold something larger than themselves. For now, they move with your steps, pale ends forward, carrying the riverbank back toward the shelter. Chapter 4: Shelter Ribs. The willow rods begin to bend before they become useful. Their pale ends point toward the shelter wall, and Toven holds the bundle under one arm as if he is carrying something already finished, though the rods still need hands, cord, pressure, and patience before they can hold anything at all. The camp receives them without ceremony. One person glances up from splitting a bone. Another reaches for the longest rod and tests it against the air. Seela takes the smallest one from Mira before the child can turn it into a spear again. Not for stabbing the wind, Seela says. Mira lowers it, disappointed but listening. Tovan grins at her, then lifts the bundle higher on his shoulder and nearly knocks the shelter frame with the thick ends. Nara's hand comes out from beside the entrance and catches the rods before they scrape against the hide. He does not speak. Tovan freezes, feels the weight of the correction, and lowers the bundle more carefully. The shelter has sagged along the side that faces the river. Not enough to fail, not enough to frighten anyone awake in the night, but enough that Seela saw it before breakfast was fully warm. The hide covering pulls unevenly where old cord has stretched. A seam near the lower edge has opened into a dark line. Cold entered there while everyone slept, and now the morning gives the camp a chance to answer before night asks the same question again. You set your rods beside the frame and crouch near the loosened place. The ground is packed hard from many feet, but near the wall it has softened where moisture gathered under the hide. Your fingers find the old binding first. It is stiff in one place, slack in another, tightened by smoke, loosened by weather, worn by days of being enough until it is not enough anymore. The shelter is not a thing built once. It is a thing kept alive by noticing. Seela kneels opposite you with a twist of fiber held between her teeth. She pulls it free and points to the bent rib already in place. This one held too much, she says. Tovan lowers himself beside the wall. Then give it less. You tell that to the wind. He looks toward the shelter opening, where the air moves in a thin grey line. The wind does not listen to me. It may be wiser than you. Mira laughs, and Tovan makes a face at her, but his hands are already reaching for the rod Seela has chosen. He presses one end into the ground where she indicates, then waits for your side to be ready. Waiting is not his strongest work. It shows in his shoulders, in the way his fingers tighten too soon, in the small breath he lets out when Seela pauses to examine the fiber before tying. Hold it low, Seela says. I am holding it. You are fighting it. Hold it. The difference is not visible at first. Tovan's hands remain in the same place, but his arms change. The rod stops quivering. Its curve becomes cleaner, and the shelter wall seems to understand what is being asked of it. You take the free end and bend it slowly toward the older rib, feeling the willow resist, then agree by degrees. The wood is cool against your palm, smooth where the bark is young, faintly ridged where a bud has not yet opened. When you bend it, the pressure travels into your wrists. The cord bites across your fingers as you loop it around the old rib and the new one together. Hide brushes the back of your hand, stiff at first, then warmer where your skin remains against it. The rod holds for a breath, slips a finger width, and holds again. Seela watches your knot form. She does not stop you, which makes every motion louder in your own body. You tuck the fiber under, pull it tight, then pull again with less force and more direction, remembering how roots break when taken straight upward and loosen when worked around. The knot settles. Tovan lets out the breath he was pretending not to hold. Mira leans close. Is it finished? No, Seela says. The child looks wounded by the answer. It looks finished. That is when things become dangerous. You understand what she means before you can name it. A shelter can look whole while one seam weakens. A spear shaft can look smooth while one raised place argues with the air. A plant can look like food until red at the stem tells another story. A track can seem to vanish into a hole when the animal has gone left through reeds. The day has been teaching through small humiliations, each one leaving your hands a little wiser. Tovan shifts his grip to the next rod. If looking finished is dangerous, I have been safe my whole life. Mira laughs harder this time, and even Seela's mouth moves. Nara, sitting just outside the shelter with the flint core wrapped near his knee, gives no sign of amusement except that he does not tell Tovan to save his breath. The camp works better when laughter remains small enough not to shake the task it has entered. The second rod is less willing. It grew with a twist inside it, invisible until pressure reveals the trouble. Tovan tries to force it into the same curve as the first, and the rod jumps in his hands. The movement is not large, but Mira startles and drops the fiber she was holding. It falls into damp dirt near the wall. Sela reaches for the rod and turns it half a hand's width. It bends this way. Tovan looks at it as if betrayed. It is a rod. It was a tree before it was a rod. That ends the matter. She gives it back to him, and he holds it differently now. Less like a thing conquered, more like a thing with memory still inside it. You take the far end and feel the difference at once. The willow follows its own curve more easily than the one imposed on it. The shelter gains another rib, not perfectly matched to the first, but strong in the direction it is willing to hold. Mia picks up the dropped fiber and wipes it on her tunic. Dirt remains in the twist. She glances towards Sela, hoping the damage is small enough to pass unseen. Sela sees it, of course. She sees everything hands do badly near work that matters. Use that for tying the reed bundle, Sela says. Not the shelter. Mira's face lowers. You reach toward the child before thinking and take the dirtied fiber from her hand. This one can still carry small things, you say. She looks up, uncertain whether that is comfort or instruction. Sela gives you a quick glance, neither approving nor correcting. Small things are still things, Mercedes, she says, and Mira holds herself a little straighter. The repair widens. Someone brings another strip of cord. Someone else warms a stiff patch of hide near the hearth before passing it out to be pulled over the new curve. A woman with ash along one cheek lifts the shelter covering from outside, while you and Tovan work the rod beneath it. The hide smells of smoke and animal fat, and when it moves, bits of dry earth fall from its lower edge. You are aware of hands everywhere. Tovan's hands pressing too hard, then learning not to. Sela's hands measuring without needing a mark. Mira's hands trying to become useful before they become steady. Nara's hands near the flint bundle, still for now, holding back another lesson for later. Your own hands darkened with ash, damp at the fingertips, no longer only obeying, but beginning to understand the shape of what must be done. A short tear near the seam needs patching. Sela lays a smaller piece of worked hide against it and gives you the awl. It is bone, polished by use, narrow enough at the tip to pass through softened hide if the pressure is true. You press too close to the edge on the first hole. Sela's hand covers yours before the mistake becomes a torn line. Farther in, she says. You shift. The awl passes through with a low resistance, felt more than heard. Tovan holds the patch flat from the other side, and for once his stillness is complete. Mira feeds the cord through when you open each hole, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. The first stitch lies unevenly. The second improves. The third begins to look as if the hide itself suggested where it should go. Nara rises then and steps inside the shelter. Light from the entrance narrows behind him, and the space seems smaller for a moment, not because he takes much room, but because attention turns toward him by habit. He touches the new rib with 2 fingers. The rod trembles slightly, then settles. His eyes move along the seam, the patch, the knots, the line where cold had entered during the night. Again here before dark, he says, pointing to the lower edge. Tovan groans softly. We just taught it to stand. You taught it to stand while morning is kind, Nara says. Night will ask again. No one argues with that. Night always asks again. It asks whether the fire was banked well, whether the food was lifted high enough, whether the hides were dry, whether tools were near the hand, whether children were close enough to warm and far enough from sparks. The answers must be prepared while the light still lets fingers see. Seela sends Mira for a bundle of dry grass from the inner wall. The child returns with twice as much as needed and drops half of it on Tovan's foot. He looks down at the pile, then at her. You attack better with grass than with willow. I was not attacking. That is why it worked. She smiles despite herself. He kneels and gathers the fallen stems, separating the clean from the damp. The gesture is small, but you notice it because in the morning he would have made someone else do it. Work changes people when it lasts long enough to tire the performance out of them. The new ribs hold. The shelter wall lifts into a stronger curve, and the patched seam no longer shows a dark opening to the outside. Seela presses along the edge, checking for loose places. You watch her face for signs of failure and find none. That absence becomes its own kind of warmth. Pull from there, she tells you. You take the lower hide edge and draw it toward the new rib, while Tovan secures the cord. The hide resists, then smooths. A space that had let cold through now closes. The inside of the shelter changes by a measure too small for a stranger to praise and large enough for sleeping bodies to feel later. That is the kind of success no one sings about. That is the kind that keeps breath warm. When the main repair is finished, the camp does not stop. It rarely stops all at once. The mended wall becomes background, while roots are set near stones, reeds are sorted, and a child's cough is answered with a warmed strip of fat rubbed between adult fingers. Seela lifts the dirtied fiber Mira dropped earlier and ties it around a small reed bundle, proving the rejected thing was not wasted. Mira sees it and relaxes. Tovan rolls his shoulders and looks at the shelter with exaggerated pride. It will stand because I held it. It will stand because the willow forgave you, Seela says. Nara wraps the flint core again and sets it aside. And because Aruk's knot did not lie. The words arrive so plainly that for a moment you do not know where to put them. Tovan glances at you, ready perhaps to make a joke, then thinks better of it. Mia looks at the knot as if it has become a person. Seela moves on to the next task, but you feel that she heard because she leaves the knot untouched. You remain crouched beside the wall a little longer than needed. The willow rods rest under the hide now, mostly hidden. Their pale bodies turned into strength no one will see unless the shelter fails. Your fingers ache where the cord pressed into them. A smear of damp earth marks your wrist. Near your knee, a loose shaving of willow curls on the ground, thin and bright against the packed darkness. Outside, the day has widened. The river path is no longer grey but pale brown, where feet have passed. Smoke from the hearth moves through the repaired shelter, opening more cleanly now, rising instead of turning back along the wall. Someone laughs near the fire. Someone else breaks a bone with a stone and catches the pieces before they scatter. Life resumes around the repair as if the repair has always been there. Seela brings the scraped hide from the warming place and carries it toward the open patch beyond the shelter. This one next, she says. The hide is larger than it looked when folded. As it opens, the pale inner surface catches the light, marked by old scraping lines and new places that still need work. Tovan takes one side, you take the other. Mira follows with stakes too large for her hands, determined not to drop them. Nara walks behind with the mallet stone. Together you stretch the hide between the stakes, pulling it wide enough for the next labor to begin. The repaired shelter stands behind you, its new ribs holding under the old covering. Ahead, the hide waits in the open air, edges trembling slightly as the first stake enters the ground. By the time the last corner is drawn tight, the day has given your hands another surface to learn. Chapter 5. The hide in the frost. Frost gathers along the stretched hide as if the night has returned to touch only its edges. The pale inner surface faces the open air, pulled wide between stakes, and every scraping line from earlier work shows in the morning light. Some places are smooth enough to take warmth later. Others still hold stiffness, old, fat, stubborn hair, and the memory of the animal's body. Sela stands beside it with her scraper in hand, studying the surface the way Nara studies tracks. You kneel near the lower corner where the hide has tightened hardest. The ground beneath your knees is cold, but the hide itself gives back a faint, dull resistance when you press it. It is no longer animal, not yet covering, and for this part of the day it belongs to the hands that can move it from one state toward another. The thought sits inside you without words. So many things here live between what they were and what they must become. Tovan circles the stretched hide once, looking for the place where work might look most impressive. Sela notices and points to a patch near the edge where the hair clings thickest. There. He looks at the patch. That part is ugly. That is why it is yours. Mira laughs, then catches Sela's glance and pretends to be deeply interested in the stakes. She carries a small bundle of thin pegs under one arm and a strip of cord over the other shoulder. Too much for her size, but not enough for anyone to take it away. Since the shelter repair, she has moved with a new seriousness, as if one clean task might turn her into someone adults forget to guard. Nara comes from the shelter, carrying the flint core wrapped in sinew. He does not open it yet. He sets it on a flat stone near the hearth, close enough to be seen and far enough away that no one will mistake it for the work already at hand. His eyes rest on the hide, then on your scraper, then on the place where your knees press into the earth. Long strokes, he says. Short anger wastes the edge. Tovan opens his mouth, perhaps to say that he has no anger, then looks at the ugly patch Sela gave him and chooses silence. That choice alone is enough to show he has begun learning something from the morning. Sela passes you a scraper made from stone, its working edge dulled by use but still true enough for this task. It fits into your palm in the way familiar tools do, not comfortably exactly, but honestly. The hide answers the first pull with a dry rasp. You draw the edge toward you, steady and low, and a thin curl of softened matter gathers ahead of the scraper. It is not a clean motion yet. Your wrist wants to dig. Your shoulder wants to finish the whole hide at once. The surface teaches otherwise. Too much pressure bites. Too little only polishes the dampness and leaves the work for another hand. Sela works beside you. Her scraper moves with an even rhythm, not fast, not slow, each stroke joining the one before it. She does not watch her hand every moment. She feels the change through the tool. Where the hide grows cleaner, the sound shifts. Where old fat remains, the edge catches. Where the surface thins, her pressure softens before danger arrives. You listen to that more than you watch. The smell rises slowly as the hide warms under work. At first it is only damp skin and frost leaving the edges. Then the deeper scent comes through. Animal fat rubbed into old creases, wet hair loosening from the surface, smoke from the hearth settling over everything, and the dark, clean smell of cold earth under the stakes. When Tovan scrapes too hard, a sharper odor opens from the torn place. Sela's head turns before her eyes do. Not through it, she says. Tovan lifts his scraper. It was holding on. So were you. He looks at the small, rough place he made. A few days ago, perhaps even yesterday, he would have made a joke quickly enough to cover the mistake. Now he runs his thumb near the tear without touching it. Can it still be used? Sila takes the hide between two fingers, tests the thin place, and nods. If no one makes it worse. That is mercy in her language. Tovan understands enough to accept it. Mira kneels near your side and watches the shavings gather. When it is done, who sleeps under it? Who needs it? Sila says. That is not a person. It may be many people. The child considers this with visible dissatisfaction. She prefers answers with faces. You understand the feeling. A spear belongs to the hand that carries it. A bead belongs to the cord that holds it, or the neck that wears it. But a hide is different. A hide may cover an elder one night, a child the next, a bundle of tools during travel, a gap in the shelter when weather turns. Some things matter more because they do not belong to one person for long. You keep scraping. The motion settles into your arm, and after a while the edge of the stone feels less like a tool you hold and more like a question moving across the hide. Is this clean enough? Is this too thin? Is this place ready to soften? Your hands begin answering before your thoughts arrive. When the hide changes under the scraper, your body knows it a breath before your eyes can see it. Nara opens the sinew wrapping around the flint core, but does not begin working. He sits with it across his knee, turning it once to catch the light. Several younger children have drifted close enough to watch the adults while pretending to be busy with chips of bone, knots of grass, and one smooth stone that has no use except that it fits nicely in a small hand. No one sends them away. Work is how they learn the shape of belonging. Sila gives Mira a dull flake and points to a narrow strip of hide cut from an older piece. Try here. Mira's face brightens so quickly that Tovan smiles despite himself. The child presses the flake to the strip and scrapes with fierce seriousness. Nothing happens. She presses harder. The strip folds. Hold it tight, you say. She pins one end with her knee as she has seen you do. The flake moves again, and this time a tiny pale shaving comes free. Mia stares at it. It could be a piece of dust. It could be proof of adulthood. In her face, it is both. Tovan leans over. That is almost enough to cover your finger. Mira glares at him. It is more than you had when you started. Sila makes a small sound that might be amusement. Nara lowers his eyes to the flint core, but you see the edge of his mouth shift. The camp receives the child's answer as it receives sparks, roots, reeds, and knots. Not loudly, but with attention. The hide tightens as the frost leaves it. Sila orders the stakes adjusted, and you help pull one corner wider. The cord around the stake has stiffened overnight, and your fingers struggle to loosen it. Tovan comes beside you, grips the stake, and holds it steady without being asked. Together you reset the angle. The hide stretches, the surface smooths, and the stubborn patch near your knee opens to better work. Again, Sila says. You return to scraping. The repeated motion begins to warm you more than the fire does. Your shoulders loosen. Your breath finds the rhythm of the tool. Around the hide, the camp continues in layers. Someone cracks a bone near the hearth. Someone sorts roots from the riverbank. Someone hums two notes and lets them fade. Someone shakes out a sleeping skin and sends a powder of old grass into the air. Nara calls Tovan to him with a tilt of the chin. The flint core rests open now, grey and brown under its scars from earlier strikes. You broke a root this morning, Nara says. Tovan's eyebrows lift. The root told you? Sila told the root. The root told everyone. This time, Tovin allows the correction to land without defense. Nara picks up a hammerstone and places it in Tovin's hand. Stone is less forgiving. Tovin's earlier brightness dims into caution. He looks suddenly younger, not because he is afraid, but because he wants to do the thing well and does not yet know how to hide that wanting. You feel a kinship with him then, sharp and brief. To be watched while learning is its own cold. Nara does not let him strike yet. He turns the core and shows the angle by placing Tovin's thumb along a ridge. No lecture follows, only the pressure of hand over hand, the transfer of a line from an older body into a younger one. Then Nara takes the hammerstone back. Later, he says. Tovin exhales. You called me only to make me wait? I called you to make you look. Sela hears this and says without turning, looking is the part he trusts least. Mira, scraping her strip, adds, because looking does not make noise. Tovin points the hammerstone at her, then remembers he is not holding it anymore. Mira smiles over her small strip of hide, victorious and covered with pale shavings. The day moves toward the middle of itself. The sun is higher, though its warmth remains thin. The stretched hide no longer glitters at the edges. Its surface has changed under many hands, less stiff now, less separate from the life of the camp. Sela rubs a small amount of warmed fat into a place she has finished, working it in with the heel of her hand. The hide darkens slightly, taking the fat slowly. Not too much, she says before anyone asks. You watch her hand move in circles. The same animal that gave meat now gives covering. Its fat softens its hide. Its bone may become a point. Its sinew may bind the tool that cuts another day's food. Nothing here ends in one place. Everything useful travels through forms, through hands, through need. A returning forager drops 2 small bones beside the hearth and speaks to Sela in a low voice. You catch only part of it. Movement beyond the higher grass, droppings near the ridge, maybe larger animals passing farther than expected. Nara hears without turning his head. His hand rests on the wrapped flint core again. The camp does not change at once, but attention shifts, like wind finding a different seam in the shelter. Tovin notices the shift and looks toward the open land. We go? Nara's answer comes after a pause. Not because your feet are bored. Because there is movement. There is always movement. That ends the exchange for now. The hide still needs work. Roots still need cleaning. The shelter still needs its lower edge checked before dark. The day refuses to become one thing merely because a young man wants it to. You feel the lesson settle near you as surely as the scraper in your palm. Large decisions are built from small finished tasks. A hungry camp cannot eat excitement. Sela sends you to bring a flat stone warmed near the hearth. When you lift it, heat spreads through your fingers and ash clings to one side. You carry it back and place it under a folded edge of hide where the warmth will soften a stiff place before scraping continues. Mira watches and then warms her own little strip between her palms, copying the idea on the scale given to her. Her strip is ugly, uneven and precious. She has scraped a patch no larger than 2 fingers, but she shows it to you with the gravity of a hunter bringing back meat. You run your thumb lightly over the place she worked. It changed, you say. She nods. I changed it. No one corrects her. For once, the child's answer is complete. When the hide has taken all the work it can take in this stretch of day, Sela gives the sign to stop. Not because the task is finished, but because bodies tire before work does, and tired hands ruin what patient hands have saved. You set the scraper down and flex your fingers. Fine bits of hide cling to the lines of your skin. Your wrist aches. Your knees are damp from the earth. Tovan stands too quickly and winces when his back protests. Mira laughs at him and then makes the same sound when her own legs object to standing. Sela gathers the usable shavings and scraps into separate piles. Nothing is left merely because it is small. Some bits will help start fire. Some will be softened. Some will be thrown where dogs or scavengers may nose later, though never close enough to invite trouble into camp. Nara comes to the stretched hide and studies the work. His eyes pass over Tovan's rough place, Mira's tiny strip, Sela's finished patch, your long scraped section. He touches none of them at first. Then he presses one finger near the area you worked and nods. This will take smoke well. It is not praise. It is a statement about the hide. That makes it easier to believe. You look down at your hands. They do not look different from the hands that woke before dawn and searched the ash. Still, they have carried fire, reeds, willow, cord, scraper, warm stone, and small corrections. They have failed in ways that did not end the task. They have learned without being told that learning was happening. Around you, the camp continues, held together by work so ordinary that no one will remember each piece separately. Sela lifts the scraper from the ground and sets it in your palm again. "Clean the edge," she says. The tool's working side is clogged with pale matter. You take a small chip of bone and begin clearing it carefully, groove by groove. Tovan carries the warmed stone back toward the hearth. Mira holds her strip of scraped hide under one arm, unwilling to let it become common property too soon. Nara wraps the flint core again in sinew and places it near his knee where the next lesson waits inside stone. The stretched hide remains between the stakes, paler now, cleaner now, edges trembling faintly in the air. Frost has left it, but the memory of cold remains along the border where the work is not finished. Near the hearth, Sela sets aside a lump of fat in a shallow bowl, its surface softening from the warmth. Smoke moves over it, slow and blue-gray, carrying the scent toward the river path. By the time you finish cleaning the scraper, the camp has turned toward the next need. The hide waits behind you, not done, not forgotten, held open by stakes and by the promise of warmth it will give later. Ahead, Nara loosens the sinew around the flint core, and the stone inside catches the light. Chapter 6. The Stone Inside the Stone. The flint core waits beside Nara's knee with light caught along one broken ridge. It does not look asleep, exactly. It looks withheld. Wrapped in sinew, carried from place to place, touched only when hands are clean enough and attention is steady enough, it has the stillness of something that can become many things and should not be hurried into becoming the wrong one. Nara loosens the wrapping without speaking. The sinew comes away in careful turns, pale and dry, and he lays it beside the flat stone as if it too has earned respect. Around him, the camp keeps working, but a small space opens by habit. Tovan drifts toward it first, pretending he only needs to stretch his legs. Mira follows more honestly, her strip of scraped hide still tucked under one arm. Sela remains near the hearth, cleaning roots, yet her eyes lift whenever Nara turns the core. You sit opposite him, close enough to see old scars on the stone. Each scar is a place where something was taken away, but none of them looks empty. The removals have made shape. They have opened ridges, angles, promises. One face of the core is smooth where flakes came off cleanly. Another is stubborn, stepped, uneven, holding the memory of a strike that did not travel far enough. Nara places the core in your palm. It is colder than you expect. He lets your hand close around it, then turns your wrist until the weight rests differently. "Do not look for the blade," he says. Toven frowns. What else is inside it? Nara looks at him. The mistake. Mira leans closer. "You look for the mistake?" "You look for where it will happen," Nara says. "Then you do not put your hand there." The words settle around the stone. They feel less like instruction than warning, but not warning of danger alone. Warning of waste. Warning of pride. Warning of the moment when a person sees the shape they want and stops seeing the shape that is actually there. Your thumb follows the ridge Nara guided beneath Toven's hand earlier. The line rises across the core, sharp enough to catch skin, but not cut unless pressed. Beside it, a flat striking place angles downward. You imagine the flake before it leaves, though the imagining is uncertain. It might open long and thin. It might stop halfway. It might break thick and useless. It might take more of the core than anyone intended. Nara takes the stone back and rests it against a folded piece of hide on his thigh. He chooses a hammerstone from 3 near his foot. Not the largest, not the smoothest. The one that seems least remarkable until his fingers close around it and its shape makes sense. Toven watches with open impatience, but his mouth stays closed. The first tap is soft enough that Mira blinks in surprise. Nothing visible happens. Nara turns the core a finger width. The second tap lands nearer the ridge. A small sound enters the air, dry and exact, and a flake opens from the core, falling into Nara's other hand as if it had been waiting for permission to leave. The camp hears it. No one turns fully, but the sound is known. Stone speaking correctly. A few hands slow in their own work. Seela's knife pauses over a root. Toven's shoulders lower. Mira's lips part around a breath she forgets to finish. Nara holds out the flake. It is not large, no longer than 2 fingers, with one thin edge bright in the weak light. You take it from him carefully. The underside is smooth in a way the core was not, curved where the force traveled, ending in a feather-thin line. It weighs almost nothing. It can cut, hide, scrape wood, trim fiber, open a joint, shape another tool. The smallness of it does not reduce it. Smallness is often the shape usefulness chooses. "Now you Mercedes," Nara says. Your hand closes around the hammerstone before your thoughts have agreed. The flint core returns to your palm, heavier now because everyone watching has become part of its weight. Toven shifts behind you. Mira's eyes fix on your hand. Seela resumes cutting roots, but you know she is listening. The core rests against the hide on your thigh, and suddenly the camp feels too full of breath. You search for the ridge Nara used, but that place is gone now, changed by the flake he removed. The stone has become a new stone. Your thumb finds another line, less clean, but possible. The hammerstone rises a little. Nara's hand closes over your wrist before the strike falls. "Not from wanting," he says. Your face warms. The hammerstone lowers. He turns the core slightly. "From seeing." The correction enters through your wrist, not your pride. He is not telling you that you cannot strike. He is telling you that the stone does not care how badly you wish to do it well. The core offers an angle, or it does not. Force cannot invent one. Wanting can blind the hand faster than darkness can. You breathe out and look again. The ridge you chose is thick near the base, poor for travel. Another ridge lies almost hidden along the side, where an older scar has left a narrow path. It is not the place you wanted because it gives a smaller flake, but it might give a true one. "There," you say. Nara does not nod. He moves his hand away. The hammerstone rises, pauses, and comes down. The sound is wrong. Not badly wrong, not a full failure, but duller than Nara's strike, shorter in the air. A flake breaks free, thick at one end, usable perhaps, but not clean. It drops against the hide and rests there like a thought that did not finish. Tovan exhales. Nara looks at him before looking at you. Pick it up. Tovan blinks. Me? You breathed at it. The words are so dry that Mira laughs before covering her mouth. Tovan kneels, picks up the flake and turns it in his fingers. The laughter fades as he studies it. He expected to mock it, perhaps. Instead, the thing gives him trouble. It is not useless. It is not good. It sits between, and between things are hard to laugh at for long. What is it for? He asks. Nara takes it, tests the edge against his thumbnail, and hands it back. Small scraping, not fine cutting, not wasted. Not wasted. The words reach you more strongly than praise would have. Your strike did not become what you imagined, but it became something the camp can use. In this world, failure that still serves is not failure in the way pride fears. It is only smaller food, smaller flame, smaller hide strip, smaller flake. Food, flame, hide, stone. Sailor brings over a strip of tough root skin and places it beside Tovan. Use it. He looks up. Now? You wanted the stone to become something. Let it. The challenge changes him at once. His fingers close around the thick flake with more respect than he gave it a breath earlier. He scrapes the root skin carefully, awkwardly, then with better control when Sealer moves his thumb farther from the edge. The flake works. Not beautifully, but honestly. Tovan's expression shifts in a way he cannot turn into a joke quickly enough. Mira settles beside you with her small scraped hide strip across her lap. Your stone is like my hide, she says. You look at the uneven patch she made, then at the flake from your imperfect strike. It changed, you say. I changed it, she answers, repeating her earlier victory. This time, the words help you. The core has changed. So have you, though not in the way you hoped. You had wanted the clean sound, the bright flake, the small nod from Nara. Instead, you have been given a duller sound, a thicker flake, and a use discovered by someone else's hands. The lesson is less sweet. It may last longer for that reason. Nara turns the core again and offers it back. Once more. The camp seems to move farther away, though nothing has changed. Sealer returns to the hearth. Tovan keeps scraping root skin with your thick flake. Mira watches without leaning too close. The fire gives a low shift behind you as a branch settles into coals. Your palm finds the cold body of the core, and your thumb begins its search with less hunger than before. This time you do not look for a large flake. You look for the line that can travel. A ridge near the top offers itself, then denies itself when you tilt the stone. Another looks poor until the light catches a narrow face beside it. Nara's silence deepens. Its silence can be more demanding than speech because it leaves no place to rest except attention. The hammerstone waits in your other hand. Its weight is plain, rounded by many uses. Your fingers adjust around it until the striking face sits where it should. The stone does not become part of your hand, not yet, but it stops feeling like a stranger. A small breath leaves you. The strike falls. The sound is cleaner. A flake opens from the core and lands against the folded hide near your knee. It is shorter than Nara's, but thinner than your first. One edge catches the light in a narrow line. No one speaks at once. That silence is the first gift. Nara picks it up, tests the edge, and places it in your palm. This one cuts. The words pass into your hand with the flake. This one cuts. Not "you have done well." Not "you are ready." Not any of the words a child might want. Only the fact. The stone has become a cutting thing because the hand listened better than before. Tovan leans in despite himself. It is smaller than his. Nara looks at him. So is your patience. Mira's laugh returns, bright and brief. Tovan accepts this one more easily, perhaps because the root skin under his own hands has begun to soften under the thick flake. Sela says nothing, but she brings over a strip of hide and lays it before you. The gesture gives the new flake its first work. You take the strip. The flake's edge enters it with almost no resistance. A thin shaving lifts away, pale and curled. The ease surprises you so much that you nearly press too hard. Your hand steadies in time. Stone, hide, pressure, breath. They arrange themselves into a small circle of sense. For a while, no one needs to speak. The sound of work fills the space more completely than talk could. Tovan's rougher scrape against root skin, your cleaner edge moving along hide. Sela's knife passing through root flesh. Mira's dull flake worrying at her practice strip. Nara turning the core, choosing the next future inside it. Tap, pause, breath, flake. The small fall of stone onto hide. The faint scrape of edge against skin. A held inhale before a strike. A quiet release when the sound is true. The camp seems to lower itself around those sounds, letting them become the center for a few sentences of the day. Nara makes 2 more flakes, then stops before the core is overworked. That restraint feels strange after watching the stone give useful edges. Tovan notices too. There is more in it. Yes, Nara says. Then why stop? Because later is also hungry. The answer settles over the flint. Later is also hungry. Later will need edges. Later will need fire. Later will need dry grass, straight shafts, repaired seams, stored fat, remembered tracks. The world does not give everything at once, and wise hands do not take everything at once merely because they can. Sela lifts a cooked root from the edge of the hearth and breaks it into pieces. The inside steams faintly in the cold air. She gives 1 piece to Mira, 1 to Tovan, 1 to you, and places 1 near Nara without asking whether he wants it. The root is bitter at first, then earthy, then almost sweet after the second chew. Warmth moves from your mouth into your chest. Work tastes different when eaten beside the tool that will continue it. Tovan holds up the thick flake from your first strike. This one still works. You swallow before answering. Then it should not hear how ugly it is. Mira nods solemnly. Ugly things can work. Sela looks toward Tovan. That is hope for you. Tovan presses a hand to his chest as if wounded, then lowers it when Nara's eyes move to him. The camp allows the small humor to pass and then returns to labor. No laughter rises high enough to wake the day too sharply. It remains near the ground, where warmth remains. Nara wraps the flint core again in sinew. He does it with the same care he used when opening it. The stone is smaller now by several flakes, yet it seems no less full. Its fullness has changed. Some of what it held now rests in other hands, beside roots, near hide, inside tasks that will move through the day. A core is not emptied when used well. It is distributed. Your clean flake lies beside your knee. A smear of hide dust clings to its edge. You want to hold it longer, to keep feeling the fact of it, but Sela's strip still needs trimming, and wanting to admire a tool too long is another way of misusing it. You take it up again and return to the work. Nara watches for a moment. "Do not chase the cut," he says. "Use slow." The shaving grows more even. Outside the shelter, the wind shifts. Smoke that had been rising through the repaired opening begins to lean toward the river path. It threads past the willow ribs, through the place where the seam now holds, and out into the pale day. The change is slight, but Sela lifts her head. Nara does too. Their attention moves with the smoke before anyone speaks. Tovum notices last. "What now?" Sela wipes her knife on a strip of grass. "Wind changed." "That is allowed." "Everything is allowed," she says. "Not everything is ignored." Nara stands and steps toward the shelter mouth. The wrapped core remains on the flat stone behind him, lessons sealed again for later. Outside, the smoke drifts low, traveling toward the river path instead of rising cleanly above camp. It carries the smell of warmed root, old ash, worked hide, and fresh stone dust. You follow Nara's gaze. The smoke line touches the open air and moves away from the shelter in a slow grey ribbon. Somewhere beyond it are the riverbank, the small tracks, the marked hollow, the reeds cut and carried, the place where animal movement may still be written into mud. Somewhere along that path, returning feet will see the smoke before they see the camp. The flake rests in your hand, small and sharp, already less new because it has begun to work. Behind you, Mira scrapes her strip with fierce care. Tovan uses the ugly flake without complaint. Sela gathers roots near the hearth. Nara stands in the opening, listening to what the wind has changed. Smoke drifts toward the river path, and the day turns its face in that direction. "I apologize. I hear you clearly, and you are entirely right. I overtarged the sentences out of habit, completely missing the strategic, breath-like rhythm you requested, and I missed the structural chapter header altogether. Let's fix this completely for Chapter 7. I will use paragraph breaks to handle the text chunks for the TTS engine seamlessly, and I will place the tags strictly at the end of paragraphs and at major narrative shifts to maximize their impact. Here is the corrected formatting for Chapter 7. Chapter 7. The Foragers Return. The smoke reaches the returning foragers before their shapes become clear. It lies low along the river path, grey against the pale grass, and the first figures appear through it as if the camp itself has breathed them back. One shoulder carries a bundle of roots tied in reed fiber. Another hand holds two small animals by the hind legs, their bodies still and dark against the morning light. Behind them, a strip of bark hangs from a cord, filled with dry fungus and curled shavings gathered from a fallen tree. You stand near the shelter opening with the sharp flake still in your hand. It has already lost its newness. Hide dust clings along one edge, and the place where your fingers hold it has warmed. Nara watches the returning figures without calling to them. Sela lifts her head from the hearth, eyes narrowing not with fear but with the old habit of counting what comes back and what does not. Tovan steps beside you and sees the small animals first. "Meat," he says. Sela's voice comes from behind him, hands first. He looks down as if surprised to find his own hands empty of work. Then he turns back to the strip of root skin he was scraping, makes two dutiful strokes with the ugly flake, and only after that looks again toward the path. Mira notices this and smiles to herself. She has begun collecting other people's lessons as greedily as roots. The foragers enter the open space before the shelter, not triumphantly, not as people returning from a story that must be told at once, but with the ordinary relief of bodies that have carried weight and found their way back. The woman in front, Ina, lowers her root bundle near the hearth and flexes her fingers before speaking. The man behind her, Kesh, lays the small animals on a flat stone, then looks toward Nara. More signs beyond the ridge, Kesh says. Nara does not move toward the animals. How far? Far enough to make young feet impatient. Tovan looks injured. Why does everyone speak of my feet when I have said nothing? Because they speak before you do, Sela says. A few mouths soften around the hearth. The small animals remain on the stone, and because no one rushes toward them, their importance grows in a steadier way. They are not enough to feed everyone fully, no one pretends otherwise, yet they are meat, and meat changes the feeling of a day even when it comes in small bodies. It changes what can be cooked with the roots. It changes who receives the first broth. It changes the strength an elder may keep for night. Mira edges closer to the flat stone. Were they caught in the hollow? Kesh looks at her, then at Nara. A hollow, not yours. The answer disappoints her and pleases her at the same time. If there is more than one place where small bodies move through grass and mud, then the world is wider in a useful way. She turns this over in her face, lips pressed together, eyes moving toward the river path as if the ground might be persuaded to show every hidden hollow at once. Aina opens the root bundle. Dark soil falls onto the ground in small clumps. Some roots are long and pale, good for roasting. Others are narrow, bitter, useful only after boiling and changing water. There are dry stalks for twisting, a handful of seed heads wrapped in leaves, and a piece of resin stuck to bark. Sela kneels beside the bundle and begins sorting without asking permission. Aina moves with her. Their hands work close together, passing judgment faster than speech. You watch the sorting because Sela's hands make knowledge visible. This root near the fire, that one to the side. These fibers under cover, that bark saved for flame. Nothing lies in one pile for long. The camp turns arrival into order, and order into the possibility of eating later. Nara crouches beside Kesh, not beside the meat. The two men look toward the ridge beyond the river path where the land lifts and grass grows in colder patches. Kesh draws a line in the dirt with a reed, then breaks it with his thumb. No map remains after the gesture, but Nara has seen enough. He asks one short question too low for you to catch. Kesh answers with a shake of the head. Tovan leans toward you. They found something. They found many things, you say. You know what I mean. You do. Larger movement. Herds maybe. Droppings, broken grass, hair caught on bark, the deep press of hooves where ground has softened. A different kind of food from the small animals on the stone, a different kind of risk, a different demand on hands, legs, weapons, timing, and luck. Nara calls your name without turning. Arak. The sound of it pulls you forward before thought does. You set the flake down where Sela can see it, edge away from Mira's reach, and cross the packed ground. Tovan follows half a step, then stops when Nara's eyes move toward him. This is not yet for eager feet. Kesh points with the reed toward the higher land. They passed before light, not close, not running. Nara looks at you. What does that tell? The question arrives heavier than the flint core. Around you, work continues, but your awareness tightens around the dirt line, the broken mark, Kesh's tired hands, Nara's waiting face. You think of the small tracks near the bank. Not frightened, Nara had said. The ground would show hurry, larger animals moving before light, not running, not close. You try to see what you have not seen. They were feeding, you say, uncertain. Kesh watches you. Nara waits, or moving to feed. Maybe, Nara says. It is the same word he gave the tracks. Maybe can shame a careless answer, but it can also keep a true answer from becoming too proud. Kesh nods once, which helps more than it should. Tovan sees the nod from where he stands and pretends not to care. Sela calls you back before the moment can grow too large. If you are done listening to lines in dirt, bring water. The order releases you. You take a skin bag from beside the shelter and move toward the shallow pit where water from the morning had been kept cool. Mira follows with a smaller cup, not asked but not stopped. The returning foragers sit now, loosening cords from shoulders, rubbing wrists where burdens pressed. One of the older men accepts a warmed stone from a child and closes both hands around it. The sight holds you briefly. Hands again. Hands coming back red from cold. Hands sorting roots. Hands showing animal movement with a reed in dirt. Hands that killed, carried, corrected, warmed, scraped and gave. The day has many voices, but the hands speak most often. Mira dips her cup badly and muddies the water. She freezes, waiting for anger. You take the cup from her, pour the clouded water near the edge, and lower it again more slowly. Let the water enter from the side, you say. Her eyes lift. Like fire? Like fire. The comparison pleases her. She tries again, and this time the cup fills clearer. It is not clean in the way water falling from rock can be clean, but it is good enough for boiling, good enough for washing hands, good enough to become part of the next task. She carries it back with both hands, walking as though the cup contains a coal. At the hearth, Sila has already begun preparing the small animals. She does not make ceremony of it. The bodies are handled with care because careless hands waste more than meat. Ina holds one while Sila opens it with a practiced cut. Tovan looks away for a breath, then looks back, ashamed of looking away though no one has accused him. Mira stays near your side. Her face is serious, not frightened. Do they hurt now? She asks softly. Sila hears. Her hands do not pause. No. That is all. It is enough. The difficult things in camp are often given short words so they do not grow teeth in the mind. The first smell of fresh meat rises only faintly, hidden under smoke, roots and hide. Sila separates what can be cooked quickly from what must be saved for broth. Kesh brings a thin bone point to help clean a joint. Dina spreads a leaf-wrapped bundle of bitter roots and tells Tovan to stop standing where people need to pass. He moves, then finds himself beside the reed bundles and begins sorting them without being asked. Changing sometimes looks like a person doing the nearest useful thing before someone names it. Nara remains near the dirt line. His gaze has gone beyond the camp, beyond the ridge, beyond whatever Kesh saw. Yet he does not call for weapons. He does not gather the young men and stride into the grass. He lets the day remain wide. Food in hand matters. Shelter still matters. Tools still matter. A herd beyond the ridge is not meat until many things agree, and many things rarely agree because someone wants them to. Sila places a small piece of fat into the shallow bowl near the fire, beside the older lump softening from earlier. It begins to turn glossy around the edges. She adds a strip of meat too small for roasting alone and sets roots near it, letting their surfaces darken slowly. The smell changes then. It is not feast, it is promise. Warm fat loosens into the air, carrying smoke with it. Root skins blister and sweeten at the edges. Meat tightens on the hot stone, its scent deepening, joining yesterday's ash, damp hide, and the bitter green of river plants. The camp leans toward the hearth without appearing to move, everybody aware of the same small warmth entering the same shared air. The fire settles there and stays. No one speaks loudly, no one needs to. The pleasure is not abundance, it is the knowledge that something found its way back to the fire. You stand near enough for the smell to enter your chest and far enough not to crowd Sila's hands. Hunger sharpens, but it does not become panic, it becomes attention. Aina breaks one roasted root and passes the softer half to an elder whose hands have been slow all morning. The elder accepts without thanks, because thanks between people who know need can be too large a word. Kesh receives a piece of meat no bigger than 2 fingers and gives part of it to the child beside him. Tovan watches this, then looks down when Sila places a root in his hand. Eat before your courage fades, she says. My courage is strong. Then it will survive a root. He bites it and winces at the bitter center. Mira watches him with delight. You receive your piece last among those standing nearby, which feels right because you did not bring the meat and did not cut the root. The food is hot enough to move from hand to hand before you can hold it. When you bite, the outside carries smoke and the inside is dense, earthy, faintly sweet. It fills only a small space in your stomach. It fills a larger one in the day. Nara comes to the hearth at last. Sela offers him meat, but he chooses the darker root first. You notice that. Tovan notices too. Nara eats slowly, eyes still toward the ridge. When he finishes, he wipes his fingers on dry grass and gestures for you and Tovan to bring the reed bundles closer. "We go later," Tovan says. It is not quite a question. Nara looks at him. "Maybe." Tovan almost groans, but the root in his mouth saves him from speech. You sit with the reed bundle across your knees and begin separating strong stems from brittle ones. Mira helps by making 2 piles that become 3 because she cannot decide whether a bent stem is still useful. Aina corrects her once. Sela corrects her again. The 3rd time, Mira corrects herself before either woman speaks. Kesh tells Nara more about the higher ground in fragments, droppings near a patch of thawed earth, grass pressed in a wide place, a strip of hair on bark, no sign of alarm, no heavy blood, no broken running. The information comes as pieces because that is how the world gave it to him. Nara receives each piece and sets it beside the others somewhere behind his eyes. You listen while your hands sort reeds. The wanting in you reaches toward the ridge, toward the larger movement, toward the possibility of seeing what Kesh saw. Yet the reeds in your lap keep asking smaller questions. Will this one twist? Will this one split? Will this one hold a knot after drying? The day refuses to let wonder leave the hand. Tovan speaks more softly than usual. If they are far, we may not catch them. Nara answers without looking away from the ridge. Catching is the last part. What is the first? Not thinking of catching. Tovan's face shows pain at such an answer. Sela passes behind him with the bowl of softening fat. He means looking. I know what he means. Mira says, your feet do not. The camp receives that with a ripple of low amusement. Tovan points a reed at her, then sets it into the correct pile. Your mouth grows too sharp. She looks at the reed. It changed. You smile before you can stop yourself. The phrase has become hers now, gathered from hide, stone, and correction. It will likely appear again when no one expects it. That is how small words travel through a camp. The returning foragers finish eating what is given to them and begin entering the rest of the day. Aina helps Sela rub fat into a stiff seam of an older hide bag. Kesh checks the binding on a spear point, not because anyone has ordered a hunt, but because a loose binding should not wait until need is standing over it. Another forager lies back near the shelter wall and closes his eyes, one hand still resting on the strap mark across his shoulder. For a while, the camp becomes a woven thing. Smoke through shelter ribs, reeds across knees, roots beside stones, fat softening in a bowl, small animal bones set aside for later use, the dirt line near Nara's foot half erased by passing feet, though the knowledge it carried has already moved into the people who need it. Nothing stays in its first form for long. You finish sorting one bundle and tie it with a length of fiber. The knot holds. That small success reaches the same place inside you where Nara's earlier words about your shelter knot still rest. Not praise, not certainty, but a sign that your hands are becoming less strange to the work expected of them. Sela lifts the bowl of fat and tilts it toward the light. This needs rubbing before it cools. Aina brings the hide bag. Mira tries to come too close and is given a reed cord to twist instead. Tovan is sent to fetch more dry grass from the inner wall. Kesh remains with Nara. The ridge waits beyond the camp, patient because land does not care how quickly young people wish to enter it. Nara finally turns from the distance and looks at you. When smoke lowers, those returning see it. When it rises, those far away may see it. You glance toward the grey line moving toward the river path. Should we change it? Not yet. Tovan returns with grass and hears only the last part. Everything is not yet. Nara takes the grass from him. That is why some things still exist. The words settle the complaint without hardening it. Tovan lowers himself beside the hearth and begins feeding the grass into a smaller flame Sela has opened near the bowl of fat. His hands, for once, move slowly enough. The afternoon is not yet afternoon, but the day has crossed a hidden line. Morning tasks have become food, tools, repaired edges, news, and waiting. The small animals have become heat in mouths, bones near the hearth, and fat in a bowl. The forager's steps have become knowledge of the ridge. The smoke has become a message lying low along the path. You step away from the hearth to rinse the flake you made. At the edge of the camp, the river path shows between grasses. For a moment, through the thinning smoke, you imagine yourself as one of the returning figures seeing the camp from outside. Low shelter, patched hide, people near fire, hands busy, a place almost invisible unless you belong to it. When you return, Sela has set the bowl of rendered fat close to the hearthstones. Its surface blankets look grey. Red ochre dust, carried from some older task, marks the side of your thumb where you must have touched a stained pouch near the fire. You rub it once, and the color spreads instead of leaving. Mira notices. Your hand is bleeding. No, you say, showing her the dry red on your skin. Only color. Iru's voice comes from behind the shelter wall, old and low, entering the morning as if it has been listening for some time. Only color can last longer than blood. No one answers at once. Even Tovan turns his head without speaking. The red dust remains on your thumb, bright against ash and hide dust, while the bowl of fat warms near the fire and the smoke continues its slow path toward the river. Chapter 8. The Red Mark. The red on your thumb darkens when you press it against the flat stone. It first leaves only a blurred stain, not a shape anyone would keep, but the color catches in the stone's rough grain and refuses to vanish. Ash dulls the edges. Hide dust clings to the dampness of your skin. When you lift your hand, the mark remains behind, smaller than the thumb that made it and somehow more noticeable because it no longer belongs to your body. Iru stands near the shelter wall, with one hand resting against a bent rib. He has not come quickly. Age does not move quickly unless it must, and nothing in his face suggests that this small red mark has hurried him. The old man's hair lies in thin grey strands against his neck, tied back with a cord darkened by smoke. His eyes remain on the stone, not on you, as if the mark deserves to be answered before the hand that made it. Do it again, he says. Tovan, who has been crouched near the bowl of rendered fat, looks from Iru to you. It is a thumb. Iru's gaze does not shift. Then the thumb can learn. Mira moves closer at once, but Sela's hand catches the back of her tunic and keeps her from crowding the stone. The child leans as far as the cloth allows. Her eyes are bright with the kind of attention that makes adults uneasy, because anything done once before a child becomes something that may be repeated badly, dangerously, or at the wrong time. Sela does not pull her away completely. That is permission enough. You look at your thumb. The red dust has settled into the lines of the skin, stronger near the nail, faint where ash has mixed into it. Beside the hearth lies the stained pouch that must have marked you earlier, a small folded piece of hide used to hold ochre from some older journey, some older place where the earth gave this color and hands decided it was worth carrying. You reach toward it, then stop and look at Aru. He nods, once. The pouch opens stiffly. Inside, the ochre is not powder alone. Some pieces are grainy, some rubbed fine, some mixed with fat in a darker smear along the fold. It is earth, but not like the earth under your knees. It has the color of inside places. of meat before smoke changes it, of evening light caught on stone, of something remembered by the eye even after the fire lowers. Sela shifts beside Mira. "Not near your mouth," she tells the child. "I know. You know after I say it." Mira accepts this as unfair and true. You touch the ochre again, this time with more care. The powder drags dryly under your thumb, then softens where a trace of fat warms it. Eru reaches down and turns the flat stone so its broader face catches the light. He does not tell you where to press. That absence of instruction makes the space wider. Your hand hovers above the surface, and suddenly the mark no longer feels like play. Tovan watches with his head tilted. If it does nothing, why keep it? Eru finally looks at him. You kept the ugly flake. That cut root. This cuts forgetting. No one laughs. Tovan lowers his eyes, not defeated, only forced to hold something he cannot answer with speed. Sela's hand leaves Mira's tunic because the child has gone still on her own. Near the hearth, the bowl of fat trembles softly in the heat, waiting for the seam it was meant to serve. Work has paused, but not stopped. The pause itself has become work. Your thumb touches the stone again. This time you press more slowly, rolling slightly from one side to the other as if taking a print from the body. The red mark appears clearer, oval at the center, broken at one edge where a wrinkle in your skin kept color from reaching the grain. It is not beautiful. It is not a picture of an animal, not a sign anyone has named aloud, not a memory fixed enough to belong to a story. Still, it is yours in a way that the first mark was not. Mira whispers, "It stayed." Eru crouches with effort, one knee lowering before the other. You hear his breath catch slightly, though his face does not change. Up close, he seems made of many small survivals. Smoke has yellowed the cords at his wrist. Old scars cross the back of one hand, some pale, some dark. The skin near his knuckles is loose and polished by years of rubbing, tying, cutting, warming, holding. He smells faintly of ash, resin, and the bitter plants Sela gives older people when cold settles in their joints. He studies the two red marks. Being near him feels different from being near Nara. Nara's silence asks whether you have noticed enough. Eru's silence asks whether you understand that noticing may not be enough unless something carries it forward. He places one finger near the first blurred mark, not touching it. Then, near the second, his hand trembles slightly in the air. The tremor does not weaken the gesture, it makes it more human. "This one is the hand arriving," he says, indicating the first. Then, he indicates the second. "This one is the hand meaning to arrive." You look at the two marks until the difference becomes larger than shape. The first came from accident and curiosity. The second came after being asked. The stone holds both without choosing between them. In the small red ovals, you see not a grand mystery, but a trace of intention, as plain and strange as a footprint that tells more than direction. Mira pulls at Sela's sleeve. "Can I?" Sela looks to Eru, not because he owns the color, but because he has entered the task and should decide how crowded it becomes. Eru lifts his chin toward the pouch. Small. Mira approaches as if nearing fire. Her finger dips into the ochre too eagerly and comes away thick with red. Sela catches her wrist and scrapes half of it back with a thumbnail. "Small," she repeats. The child presses her finger beside yours. Her mark is narrow, uneven, and stronger at the top where she pressed too hard. She stares at it with her mouth slightly open. For once, she does not ask who it belongs to. The answer is in her face, and asking would make it smaller. Tovan folds his arms. If everyone puts a finger there, the stone will be full. Eru's eyes remain on Mira's mark. Then it will be a full stone. That is not useful. Sela reaches for the bowl of fat. You are fond of that word when work confuses you. Tovan's ears redden. He reaches for the reed cord he had been twisting and pulls it straighter than necessary. Yet he does not leave. His doubt stays because the stone has caught him too, though he would rather be caught by a hunt, a track, a tool, something with an edge that declares its purpose. Eru turns the stone again. Put the fat there. Sela frowns slightly. For the mark? For the stone. It is dry. The answer satisfies no one fully, which may be why it is accepted. Sela dips 2 fingers into the warm fat and rubs the smallest amount along one edge of the stone away from the marks. The fat darkens the grain and deepens the red where it nears the color. The smell rises gently, warm animal fat carrying smoke, ochre, and heated stone into the air. It is not a cooking smell now. It is work, preservation, and memory sharing the same breath. You rub your thumb against your palm, but the red does not leave. It spreads across the skin instead, turning the ash there into a muted brown. Mira sees this and rubs her own finger on her hide strip, leaving a thin, accidental line. She freezes, then glances towards Sela. Sela looks at the line, then at the child. That strip is yours today, she says, so remember what you have done to it. Mira nods as if she has been entrusted with something difficult. The stone passes no farther. Eru lifts it with both hands and sets it near the inner shelter wall, where smoke will reach it but feet will not. It rests beside a bone point too worn for hunting and a shell bead whose hole has widened from old cord. These things are not stored with food, not stored with ordinary tools, yet not hidden either. They remain where hands can find them and children can ask about them when the night is long enough. Tovan notices the bead and points with his cord. That still does nothing. Eru sits back on his heels and looks at the bead. It brought someone back into your mouth. Tovan opens his lips, then closes them. He has spoken of the bead now, and because he has spoken, the object has done at least that much. You see the realization reach him slowly, unwanted and undeniable. Sela's mouth softens, but she lets him keep the dignity of not being watched too closely. Nara enters from the shelter opening then, carrying a bundle of dry grass. His eyes move first to the hearth, then to the bowl of fat, then to the red marks on the flat stone. He takes in the changed arrangement without asking what has happened. People like Nara do not need every event told in order. They read the ground, the hands, the silence after speech. Tracks wait, he says. Marks wait too, Eru answers. The 2 older men look at one another. There is no challenge in it, only the meeting of 2 kinds of attention. Nara follows what moves through mud, grass, and distance. Eru follows what remains after hands have moved away. Between them, the camp seems to hold both directions at once. Tovan seizes the chance to return to firmer ground. If tracks wait, we should go. Nara turns toward him. What did the tracks ask you? Tovan hesitates. To follow. No, that is what your feet asked. Mira, still holding up her stained finger, says, his feet talk too much. This time the laughter around the hearth is a little fuller, though still low. Tovan points at her, then at you, then gives up and returns to the reed cord. His face carries embarrassment, but not anger. The day has been wearing down the sharpest parts of him through roots, rods, stone, and now color. Sela brings the bowl of fat back toward the stretched hide and gestures for you to help. The red on your thumb remains as you take the hide edge. Ochre stains the work now, a faint mark where your hand grips. Sela sees it, but does not correct you. Perhaps the hide can carry a little color. Perhaps everything useful carries traces of everything that touched it. Together you rub fat into a stiff seam. The work is slow and close. Your thumb moves in small circles, red fading into brown as fat and hide take it. The seam softens under pressure. It will not become beautiful. It will become more able to bend without breaking. That seems to be the work of the whole day. Eru remains near the inner wall, arranging the marked stone where smoke will pass over it. Mira's finger has begun drying, and she keeps it lifted as if it still burns. Tovin twists cord with unusual care. Nara stands just beyond the shelter mouth, looking toward the ridge, but not yet moving. Every person in the camp appears held between what must be done now and what may need doing later. When the seam has taken enough fat, Sela hands you a strip of dry grass to wipe your fingers. The red does not disappear completely. It lingers at the side of the nail and in the crease of your thumb. You look at it and think of tracks in mud, prints that hold only until thaw, and marks on stone, which may hold longer but still need someone to care where they are placed. The thought does not become words. It becomes attention. It changes how you lift the next strip of hide, how you keep your thumb away from the cleanest part, how you notice Mira watching you and make the motion slower so she can learn it. Iru's voice comes again, low from the wall. A hand leaves more than it holds. Sela answers without looking up. Only if it finishes the work. Iru smiles then, a small crease beside the mouth, and lets her have the stronger word. The camp does not choose between mark and seam, memory and shelter, color and fat. It needs all of them, and because it needs them, each takes its turn under the same smoke. The bowl of rendered fat lowers as the hide drinks it. Sela scrapes the last soft edge with 2 fingers and places what remains near the fire so it does not stiffen too soon. Tovin brings another seam. Mira is finally allowed to press her stained finger to her own strip again, turning accident into intention. Nara steps inside long enough to take a warmed root, then returns to the opening where the ridge waits beyond sight. You sit back on your heels and look once more toward the marked stone. Your thumbprint, Mira's finger mark, the blurred first stain, the deepened grain where fat touched stone. All of it rests beside the old bead and worn bone point. Nothing there explains itself. Nothing there needs to. It is enough, for now, that hands have been present and the world has kept the trace. Near the hearth, the bowl of rendered fat waits within reach, its surface glossy in the firelight. The next seam lies across your lap. Smoke folds over the hide and carries the smell of ochre, ash and warm fat into the shelter ribs, where the red marks remain behind you and the day moves on through your hands. Chapter 9. Fat in the Seam. The fat softens under your thumb before the hide does. It sits warm in the shallow bowl, glossy where the hearth has reached it, thicker near the cooler rim, and when you take a little between 2 fingers, it clings as if reluctant to leave the vessel. Sela places the seam across your lap and presses one end flat with the heel of her hand. Not on top, she says, into it. The seam is old work meeting new need. 2 pieces of hide overlap there, stitched with cord that has darkened from smoke and use. The outer surface still holds the faint scrape marks of earlier hands. The inner fold is stiffer, colder, and more stubborn, the place where night air would find a way through if the camp trusted appearance too easily. You rub the fat along the line and feel the first resistance under your thumb. Sela watches only long enough to see whether your pressure is honest. Then she turns to Mira, who has been holding her stained finger away from everything as if it belongs to someone important. If you keep that hand in the air, it will learn nothing. Mira lowers it at once, then nearly touches the clean side of the hide and stops herself. Her face tightens with the strain of remembering too many instructions at once. The red mark on her finger has dried into the crease near the nail. It makes the small hand look older than it is. Here, you say, pointing to the edge that will not matter if stained. Hold this. She places her fingers where you show her, carefully, too carefully at first, so the hide slips, then with more firmness, and the seam settles across your knees. Tovin crouches opposite you with another strip waiting. He has been unusually quiet since the marked stone was set near the shelter wall. Quiet does not sit easily on him. It moves around inside his body, showing itself in the way he reties a cord already tied, picks up a reed and sets it down, glances toward the river path as if tracks might come walking into camp and save him from thinking. Eru sits near the inner wall where smoke can reach the marked stone. He is mending a small hide pouch whose edge has frayed. The work lies close to his knees. His hands move slowly, and each movement seems to ask permission from the joints before it continues. Age has not taken usefulness from him. It has changed the speed at which usefulness arrives. Nara is outside the shelter opening, checking the lower edge of the repaired wall. He presses a stake deeper with a stone, then tests the cord by pulling once and letting it go. The new willow ribs hold. The shelter has accepted the morning's repair, at least for now. Nothing in camp is trusted forever. The seam under your thumb begins to change. Fat darkens the hide, filling small cracks, making the stiff fold more willing to bend. The smell rises as your hand warms it. Animal fat, smoke, old leather, the faint mineral dryness of ochre still caught near your nail. It is close work, intimate work, the kind that leaves its scent on skin long after the task has ended. When you lean nearer, the seam smells of warmth being stored. Sela returns and tests your work with 2 fingers. She bends the seam gently. It moves, but not enough. Again. You rub more slowly. The fat disappears into the fold in uneven patches, and where it enters well, the hide loses its pale dryness. Mira watches the difference with fierce attention. She has stopped guarding her finger and begun guarding the task. Why does it drink? She asks. Sela lifts a brow. It does not drink. Mira frowns. It takes it in. That is not always drinking. Tovan looks up. Now the hide is wiser than me too. It argues less, Sela says. He accepts this with a tilt of the head, almost graceful, and for a while the 4 of you work without speech. The seam receives fat, the hide warms, the cord darkens where your fingers pass too close. Mira's red finger leaves one small print on the underside, hidden when the fold closes. She sees it happen and looks at you in alarm. It will be inside, you say. Will Sela see? Sela sees everything. The child's shoulders drop. Sela, without looking, says, I saw. Mira closes her eyes as if struck by fate. And it is inside, Sela adds, so let it stay. The relief on Mira's face is so large that Tovan has to look away to keep from laughing. He does not fully succeed. The small sound escapes him, soft and kind rather than sharp. Mira hears the difference and does not glare. Perhaps this is how change comes into a person like Tovan, not as a great decision, but as the discovery that laughter can warm instead of cut. Eru threads a cord through the pouch edge and pulls it tight with both hands. The cord trembles slightly from the effort. You see Nara notice from the opening, but he does not step in to help. Eru would not thank him for help offered too soon. Instead, Nara turns back to the stake and gives the old man the dignity of completing the pull himself. The pouch closes. Eru rubs one thumb across the mended edge, then places it beside the marked stone. The pouch is stained with old colors, red, brown, a trace of yellow earth near the fold. It has carried powder, small shells, perhaps a tooth, perhaps things you have not been allowed to ask about because not every object in camp belongs to every mouth. Eru looks at it with the same attention Sela gives roots and Nara gives tracks. Tovan sees the look. Was that pouch someone's? Eru answers after a moment. It still is. The reply quiets him. You keep rubbing the seam, but your attention moves toward the pouch. Someone not sitting here once opened it. Someone's hand knew the fold, the weight, the small contents, the way its cord tightened. Now Eru keeps it near the marked stone, not hidden, not common. The camp holds more people than the bodies inside it. Sela takes the seam from your lap and hands you another. This one is worse. It is. The hide has cracked near the stitching, not open yet, but threatening. The The cord remains strong, though the edges around it have dried and stiffened. If pulled hard in cold weather, it might tear. You set it across your knees and study it before touching the fat. Nara steps inside then, bringing cold with him. He looks at the seam. Do not pull it flat. You stop before doing exactly that. He kneels close enough to place one finger under the fold. Let the bend remain. Soften where it bends. The instruction is different from Seela's, but not against it. Seela works from the life of the hide. Nara sees what stress will do when the shelter moves in wind, when a sleeping body pulls a covering wrong, when a bundle is tied in haste. Their knowledge overlaps without becoming the same. You follow the bend with your thumb. The fat gathers at the curve, then spreads under pressure. Slowly, the fold formats, splits, or wrinkles. The fold loosens without losing its shape. That distinction matters. The seam does not need to become flat. It needs to survive bending. Mira whispers, like willow. You look at her. She points toward the shelter ribs. It bends how it wants. Nara's eyes move to the child. For a moment, his face gives away nothing. Then he says, yes. Mira's whole body receives the word. She does not smile loudly. She lowers her head and holds the hide more firmly, as if the answer has given her a place among the workers that no one can take away for at least a few breaths. Tovan watches her, and something in his expression softens. He reaches for the smaller strip she had been trying to hold and steadies the far end so her arms do not stretch too much. She notices but does not thank him. He does not ask her to. Their hands share the weight without turning it into a moment large enough to embarrass either of them. Outside, the day has grown brighter but not warmer. The wind still leans toward the river path. Smoke passes through the repaired opening in long folds, lower than before, touching the ground beyond the shelter and sliding away through grass. The returning foragers' bundles have been sorted. The small bones from the morning's animals rest near the hearth, clean now, set aside for uses not yet chosen. Seela lifts the bowl and tilts it. More heat. You take the bowl carefully and set it nearer the coals. The fat thickened while you worked. Near the fire, its surface loosens again, first at the edge, then across the center. Mira watches it with the same fascination she gave the coal at dawn. Perhaps everything that changes slowly can hold a child still if the adults do not crowd the watching. The warmth from the hearth reaches your face. For a little while, the camp becomes small around the bowl. Seela's hand waits. Tovan's reed cord lies forgotten across his knee. Nara cleans dirt from under one nail with the tip of a bone sliver. Eru's eyes lower as if he is listening to the fat soften, though there is no sound. When the bowl returns to your lap, the work becomes easier. The seam takes the fat more deeply. Your thumb travels along the bend, and the hide no longer resists in the same dry way. It gives under pressure, not weakly, but with the guarded willingness of something restored before damage fully arrived. The repair settles into the task. There is pleasure in this kind of mending, though it is not the pleasure of eating or sleeping. It is the pleasure of catching failure early, the pleasure of feeling a stiff thing become usable again, the pleasure of knowing that someone will be warmer later because your hands did not hurry now. Tovan takes the next seam without being told. He studies it, frowns, and then looks to Seela before beginning. Into it, he says, repeating her first correction. Seela nods. Into it. He rubs the fat with 2 fingers, too heavily at first, then wipes some back with dry grass and tries again. The old Tovan would have turned the correction into a joke. This one only adjusts. Mira watches him with the solemn judgment children give adults who are late to a lesson they themselves have just learned. Better, she says. Tovan glances at her. You are now Seela. Mira considers this. No, I am worse. Seela makes a sound low in her throat. Eru smiles toward the marked stone. Even Nara lets the corner of his mouth move before returning to his nail. The laughter that follows is small. but it stays longer than usual because no one feels cut by it. Aina enters carrying a hide bag from the storage side of the shelter. One strap has stiffened where old fat dried unevenly. Sela takes it, bends it, and passes it to you. After that seam, work multiplies in the presence of work. A repaired seam reveals a stiff strap. A stiff strap reveals a weak knot. A weak knot reveals a cord that should be replaced before travel. This is not failure. This is how a camp remains able to move when movement becomes necessary. Waiting until everything breaks would be foolishness wearing the mask of rest. Nara looks toward the ridge again. If we move in 2 days, these must hold. No one asks whether the camp will move. Maybe it will, maybe it will not. The possibility enters the shelter and sits beside the fire. 2 days is not a command. It is enough time for hands to begin preparing without frightening anyone into waste. Tovan's fingers pause on the seam. Toward the ridge. Toward what the ridge tells us, Nara says. That is not a place. It may become one. You understand enough not to need more. Camps do not move because people love the labor of packing. They move because food shifts, weather presses, wood thins, water changes, animals pass. Old ground gives less than new ground may give. A home here is real without being fixed. A shelter can be repaired in the morning and taken apart later by the same hands that saved it. Mira looks around as if trying to imagine the shelter folded, the hearth cold, the marked stone wrapped, the willow ribs left behind or carried. Her face tightens. What about my mark? Iru answers from the wall. If the stone travels, it travels. If it stays, it keeps the place. That does not satisfy her fully. It cannot. The first thing a child marks feels as if it should be protected from every possible leaving. Yet she does not argue. She looks at the stone, then at her stained finger, then back at the seam she is holding. Perhaps she is learning that keeping is sometimes a matter of memory, not possession. You finish the second seam and pass it to Sela. She bends it, presses the repaired curve, and gives it back for one more pass along the edge. The correction is small, almost affectionate. Your hands no longer resent it, they follow. The fat bowl lowers again. Sela scrapes the sides with 2 fingers and gathers the last soft portion. She divides it between the strap Ina brought and the seam Tuvan works. Nothing remains in the bowl except a shine. Mira peers into it. Empty, she says. Useful Mercedes, Sela corrects. The bowl itself will be wiped with dry grass. The grass will help flame later. The scent will remain on fingers. Some of the fat will travel inside seams through cold nights no one has reached yet. Empty is rarely empty here. Used things continue. Eru calls your name. Aruk. You look toward him. He holds out a small bead, dark near one side, pale on the other. Its hole worn smooth by cord. It rests in his palm as if it weighs more than stone should. This fell from the pouch edge. Mira inhales sharply. Tovan forgets his seam. Sela's hand stops above the strap. Even Nara turns fully now. Eru does not explain whose bead it was. He does not give it a story large enough to make everyone lean in. He only holds it out. And because he holds it out to you, you cross the small space on your knees and place your palm beneath his. The bead drops into your hand. It is cool at first, then begins taking warmth from your skin. Its hole is off-center. One side is scratched where it rubbed against another bead or a tool, or years of being carried. It is a small thing, smaller than the coal that began the morning, smaller than the thick flake, smaller than Mira's marked strip. Yet the camp holds still around it. Mira whispers, "Who wore it?" Eru closes his fingers around the empty space where the bead had been. Someone whose hands were often cold. That is all he gives. It is enough to make the bead feel human without turning the person into a tale. Someone whose hands were often cold, someone who may have warmed them at this hearth, or another, someone who tied a cord, opened a pouch, carried color, perhaps laughed at Toven's kind of impatience before Toven was born. Nara looks at the bead in your palm. Cord it before it is lost again. Selah reaches for a thin strip of fiber. Toven, unexpectedly, offers the cord he has been twisting. This one is better, he says. No one teases him. That may be why his face reddens more than it would under mockery. Mira looks from the cord to him with open surprise. He shrugs as if giving away a cord means nothing, though his hands remain empty afterward and unsure where to rest. You take the cord from him. The bead stays in your palm, waiting for the next work. Around you, the mended seams darken where fat has entered them. The bowl near the hearth holds only a shine. The marked stone rests by the wall. Smoke drifts through the shelter ribs and out toward the river path, carrying the smell of warm hide, ash, ochre, and the last of the rendered fat. In your hand, the child's bead waits to be threaded. Chapter 10. The Bead and the Cord. Was it hers? Mira's question arrives before the bead has warmed fully in your palm. It is kneeling close enough to see the off-center hole, the pale side, the darker scratch where years of rubbing have left a thin mark. Her own stained finger rests against her knee now, forgotten for the moment because the bead has taken all her attention. Beside you, Toven's cord lies across your wrist, offered too quickly for him to take it back without shame. Eru looks at the bead, not at Mira. Maybe. The word might have disappointed her from anyone else. From Eru, it seems to open a small door rather than close one. Maybe leaves room for hands whose names are no longer spoken every day. Maybe lets the bead belong to more than one memory. Maybe keeps the camp from pretending it knows what only the dead could answer. Mira frowns. If it was hers, why did it fall? Because cords grow tired, Selah says. The answer is practical, and because it is practical, it saves the bead from becoming too heavy to touch. She takes the cord from your wrist and draws it through her fingers, testing twist, strength, and weakness. Toven watches her do it with the strained expression of someone who has given something away and now fears it will be judged poorly. Selah pulls once, then twice, and the cord holds. This will do, she says. Toven tries not to look pleased. He fails quietly. You hold the bead between thumb and finger. Its hole is small, worn smooth by time, but clogged at one edge by old dirt and the dry remains of whatever cord carried it before. Selah hands you a bone sliver and nods toward the opening. No one tells you to be careful. The bead itself says that. A hard push might widen the hole badly. A careless twist might crack what has lasted longer than many hands. The bone point enters a little, stops, then turns. Dust lifts from the hole in a faint grey thread. Mira leans closer until Selah places 2 fingers against her forehead and gently pushes her back. Eyes can see from there. My eyes see better near. Your breath does not help. Mira seals her lips and continues watching. The bead clears slowly. You turn it between your fingers, and its small weight changes with every angle. One side is cooler, where it has not touched your skin. One side is warmer, where your palm has held it. The surface is not perfectly round. It carries shallow unevenness, a place where stone or shell or bone was shaped with patient abrasion, and that imperfection makes it feel less like an object found and more like an object persuaded. Eru's hands rest on his knees. They are empty now. Without the pouch, without the bead, without the needle, they show their age more openly. The knuckles are thick. The fingers curve slightly inward, as though years of holding small things have given them a permanent memory of work. He watches your hands clean the bead, and you realize that he is watching not only whether you succeed, but how you treat a thing that cannot defend itself from carelessness. Who made it? Mira asks. Eru's eyes soften toward the bead. Someone with time. Tovan looks up. Time is not a tool. Eru turns his head slowly. It is the tool that uses every other tool. Tovan absorbs this badly at first. His brow tightens as if he has been handed a knot with no loose end. Then he looks toward the bead again, toward the tiny hole, the worn side, the cord in Seela's hand, and some part of him stops resisting. Not everything useful announces itself by cutting, scraping, tying, carrying, or cooking. Some things work by remaining. Seela gives you the cord. Twist the end. You roll the cord between your fingers until its fibers tighten into a narrow point. The end still frays. You wet it lightly, twist again, and pass it toward the bead. The hole refuses at first. The cord bends instead of entering. Mira's shoulders rise with suspense. Tovan's hand moves as if to help, then stops because he knows the offer would be wrong unless asked. The second attempt enters halfway. The cord catches inside. You ease it back, turn the bead, and try from the other side to see which opening welcomes the twist more cleanly. This side gives. The cord slides through a little, then appears as a small dark point at the far edge. Mira exhales as though the bead has survived a river crossing. Pull it, Seela says. You catch the tiny end with your nails and draw it through. The cord emerges, thin and dark against the bead's pale side. The moment is almost nothing, fiber passing through a hole. Yet everyone near you feels it become complete. The bead no longer waits loose in the palm. It has a path again. Tovan speaks before he can protect himself from sincerity. It looks better. Seela ties one temporary knot so it will not slip back. It looks held. Mira reaches out, then stops and looks to Eru. May I? Eru nods, with both hands. She takes the cord carefully, palms open, as if receiving water that might spill through skin. The bead hangs from the center, turning once. It catches the hearth light on its pale side. Then the dark scratch shows and vanishes. Mira lifts it toward her own neck, not putting it on, only imagining the weight there. If I wear it, is it mine? She asks. No one answers quickly. The question is too large for its size. You look at the bead and think of the person whose hands were often cold, of Eru's pouch, of Tovan's cord, of Seela's knot, of your fingers cleaning the hole, of Mira's eyes making the bead important again merely by wanting to understand it. Seela breaks the silence. If you wear it today, you care for it today. That is not mine. That is enough. Mira considers this and accepts it with difficulty. She lowers the bead from her neck and holds it in her lap, where the cord makes a small dark curve against her tunic. Her wanting does not disappear. It becomes gentler because it has been given a task. Eru shifts closer to the wall, where the marked stone rests near the old bone point. There was a woman, he says. The camp around the hearth does not become silent all at once. It softens into listening. Seela's hands keep moving over the strap. Nara remains near the entrance, but his head turns slightly. Tovan lowers the reed he was pretending to sort. Mira's fingers close around the cord, but not the bead. She laughed when her hands were cold, Eru says, as if cold had made a foolish mistake by finding her. She wore 3 beads, one pale, one dark, one that broke before the last snow where she walked with us. He does not say whether this is the same bead. He does not say her name. Perhaps the name is not for this moment. Perhaps he has chosen the part of her that can enter the day without making the day bow under grief. A laugh in cold hands. 3 beads, one broken before snow. That is all, and it brings her close enough. Mira looks down at the cord. Did she make this one? Maybe, Eru says again. This time Mira does not frown. She seems to understand that maybe is not emptiness. It is a shelter with one side open. Nara steps inside with a half-burned branch and lays it across the hearthstones, turning the thicker end away from the strongest flame so it will catch slowly. Memory should eat after work, he says. Eru looks at him. Memory eats whenever it is fed. Sela glances between them. Both of you eat when I give you food. That ends whatever might have become too solemn. Toven smiles into his shoulder. Mira's hand relaxes around the cord. Nara accepts the correction as he accepts weather, without argument, without surrender. The bead remains in Mira's lap while work resumes around it. Sela finishes the strap. Toven brings another cord and sits closer than before, watching how Sela knots the temporary holding into something stronger. You trim the frayed end with your clean flake, taking care not to cut too near the knot. The flake passes through fiber with a soft resistance, and the small severed end curls against your thumb. Mira lifts the bead once more. Can I wear it until night? Eru looks at Sela. Sela looks at the cord, the knot, the child's hands, then at the place near the shelter wall where the pouch rests. Until night, Mercedes. Mira's face brightens, but she remembers not to celebrate too loudly. She bows her head so you can pass the cord over it. The bead settles at her chest, slightly crooked because the cord is not measured for her. It rests there with an awkward dignity. Toven studies it. It hangs too low. Mira looks down. It does not. It will hit your bowl when you eat. Then I will eat carefully. Sela says, that would be new. Mira lifts her chin, determined to become careful through pride if not wisdom. The camp allows the bead to remain visible. No one stares too long after the first moments. That would make the child self-conscious and the memory too exposed. Still, eyes return to it now and then. Ina passes and touches the cord lightly with one finger, not the bead. Kesh notices and nods to Eru. One of the smaller children asks why Mira has been given a moon on a string, and Mira says, with great authority, that it is not the moon and not fully given. You smile at that. Not fully given. The phrase is clumsy, but it holds more truth than many smoother answers. Much of camp life is like that. Tools are held, used, passed. Food is gathered, shared, changed. Fire is carried, not owned. Knowledge enters one body from another and leaves again through action. Even a person's name belongs partly to the mouths that speak it. The bead swings when Mira moves. At first she keeps touching it to make sure it remains. Sela tells her to stop. Then she walks too stiffly, trying not to disturb it, and Toven imitates her for 3 steps until Sela's look cuts the performance short. After that, Mira forgets herself for a little while and becomes natural again. The bead moves with her breath. Eru watches that movement. His face does not soften in any dramatic way. It merely becomes less guarded. Being close to him now, you feel the shape of age differently, not as distance from the day, but as a body crowded with days that still lean forward when a child wears an old bead. The past is not behind him exactly. It sits inside his hands, waiting for work, story, or accident to open it. You return to trimming cord. The clean flake has begun to dull at the edge, but it still serves. Toven's ugly flake sits beside a pile of scraped root skins, proof that usefulness and beauty are not always born together. Sela's bowl of fat holds only a shine. The marked stone rests behind Eru. The shelter ribs hold overhead. Around you, the day gathers its objects like thoughts. Nara crouches beside the hearth and turns the half-burned branch. Fire takes one side, then slows. Night will need this one, he says. Toven looks toward the entrance. It is far from night. Night starts before dark, Nara says. No one argues. The branch remains across the hearth as a promise to later hours. Its bark blackens along one edge. Smoke rises in a narrow ribbon and folds beneath the repaired shelter opening before finding the way out. Mira watches the branch for a moment. then touches the bead without thinking. Past and later hang together on her small body. Old bead, future fire. Sela begins dividing the remaining roots. Some are for eating now, some for later, some for boiling when there is enough water and patience. Aina helps her. Kesh checks the binding on a spear point again. Nara's eyes return now and then to the ridge beyond the entrance. Larger movement remains possible, but the camp does not bend itself entirely around possibility. It remains loyal to what is in hand. That loyalty feels different after the bead. In the morning, tasks seemed separate because your hands were still learning where one ended and another began. Now the day seems threaded, coal to flame, flame to food, root to strength, willow to shelter, hide to warmth, fat to seam, ochre to mark, bead to cord, cord to child, child to memory, memory back to work. You do not say this. Saying it would make it too neat. Life here is not neat. It is tied, scraped, carried, repaired, warmed, dropped, found, and tied again. Mira brings you the bead after a while. It twists. You look at the cord. The temporary knot has rolled, making the bead sit strangely. Sela is busy with roots, so you take the cord gently and show Mira how to turn the knot back with 2 fingers rather than pulling the bead itself. She watches, then tries. Her fingers are clumsy at first. The bead spins. Tovan leans in as if to comment, sees her concentration, and says nothing. "There," she whispers when it settles. "Now you know," you say. She nods, and for once, the knowing is not borrowed. It is hers because the bead misbehaved in her hands, and she corrected it without losing it. Eru sees the correction and closes his eyes for one breath. When he opens them, he speaks not to Mira, but to you. A thing remembered still needs care. The words enter gently because the day has prepared a place for them. You look at the bead, the cord, the knot, the child's careful fingers. Remembering is not keeping something unchanged. It is work done again whenever the cord twists, the pouch frays, the name fades, the story thins, the stone gathers dust. Sela finally gives out food. The pieces are small but warm. Mira eats carefully as promised, holding the bead away from the bowl with one hand until Sela tells her that careful does not mean useless. Tovan laughs softly and then helps her adjust the cord so it falls to the side while she eats. The gesture is quick, almost hidden. Mira allows it, which may be the greater gift. Eru receives his portion last because he insists others take theirs first. Sela puts a root in his hand anyway and says, "Eat before memory eats you." He smiles at that. Memory has poor teeth. Then it chews long. The old man accepts this, and the exchange leaves warmth behind it. Not the warmth of fire alone, but the warmth of people who have repeated such corrections for many seasons and are still here to repeat them again. The light shifts toward the side of the shelter. Afternoon has entered without announcement. The half-burned branch across the hearth has caught along one edge and now rests in a bed of low coals. Nara turns it once more so it will not spend itself too early. The motion is small, careful, and full of later. Mira returns the bead to Eru before anyone asks. That surprises everyone except perhaps Eru. She lifts the cord over her head, holds it in both hands, and places it across his palms. "Until night," she says, reminding the adults of their own words before they can soften them. Eru receives it with a gravity that honors her effort. "Until night," he agrees. Then he does something unexpected. He folds the cord once, twice, and places it not back into the old pouch, but beside the marked stone where it can be seen. Mira watches this with relief she tries to hide. The bead is not on her body now, but it has not disappeared into the private dark of a pouch. It rests where smoke passes, where eyes may return to it, where the day can remember that she carried it carefully. Tovan looks at the bead. It is safer there. Mira says, "It is waiting." No one corrects her. The hearth lowers slightly as the branch settles. Nara reaches with a long stick and draws the half-burned wood into a better place across the coals. One end glows, the other remains dark, saved for night. Smoke moves upward, then bends with the wind, threading past the repaired shelter ribs. You sit with the trimmed cord end still between your fingers, listening to the small sounds of the camp resuming around the bead. Roots sorted, hide folded, a child breathing through a blocked nose, Eru rubbing his thumb along the cord where Mira's hands had held it, Sela wiping the fat bowl clean with dry grass that will feed flame later. The bead rests beside the red marks, pale side turned toward the fire. The half-burned branch lies across the hearth, neither spent nor untouched, holding its dark end for the hours ahead. As the light leans lower, Nara leaves it there carefully, a piece of afternoon already prepared for night. Chapter 11. The Night Branch. The half-burned branch takes the night slowly. It sits in the low bed of coals, red along its split side, while the other remains dark and solid, saved by the way Nara turned it before the light thinned. Smoke rises from the warmed bark in a narrow fold, not enough to trouble the eyes, only enough to remind the shelter that fire is still working even when flame does not show itself fully. You sit near the hearth with your knees drawn close, the clean flake resting beside a strip of hide you have been trimming into narrower ties. The day has pressed its work into your hands. Ash in the creases, ochre at the thumb, fat near the nail, a faint rawness where cord pulled too hard during the shelter repair. Each mark belongs to a different hour, and all of them have arrived together at evening. Mira lies near Sela's side with the bead no longer around her neck, though her hand keeps drifting toward the place where it had rested. The bead itself sits beside the marked stone near the inner wall, pale side turned toward the hearth. Toven has stretched out with one arm over his face, claiming he is only resting his eyes until someone needs strength. His reed cord, half finished, lies across his stomach. Sela is still awake because Sela is almost always awake when something can dry too quickly, burn too low, spoil near heat, or be left where a child may step on it in darkness. She checks the fat white seams one by one, folding them, pressing them, letting her fingers decide what the eye cannot. Aina helps her in silence, and the two women move around each other with the ease of people who do not need to divide a task aloud. Nara stands at the shelter opening, his shape held against the fading outside. The ridge is only a darker weight beyond the open ground now. The river path has disappeared into a single band of cold air. Somewhere out there, the small tracks near the bank are losing their edges. Somewhere beyond the ridge, larger animals may be feeding, moving, sleeping, or leaving. The camp cannot know yet. Not all knowing belongs to one day. He turns from the entrance and looks at you. First watch with me. The words settle into you before their meaning finishes opening. Toven lifts the arm from his face. For a moment you think he will protest or offer himself instead, but he only looks at Nara, then at you, then lets his arm fall back across his eyes. Mira raises her head from Sela's side. Aruk will watch the dark? Sela answers before you can. Aruk will watch what can be watched. That distinction matters. The dark itself is too large to watch. The shelter edge can be watched. The fire can be watched. The stored food, the path, the sound of grass, the movement of dogs or scavengers beyond the low light, these can be watched. You rise and feel the stiffness in your legs from the day's kneeling. Your body wants sleep. The wanting is honest, but Nara has already stepped aside to make room near the entrance. Before you go, Sela places a small piece of warmed root in your hand. Eat. I am not hungry. She looks at you. You eat. The root has gone soft at the center and tough at the edges. Smoke has entered it more fully than before, and a trace of fat from the stone gives it richness beyond its size. It is not much food, it is enough to remind your body that it has been seen. Warmth travels from your mouth downward, settling beneath your ribs as you step toward the opening. Based on your needs, you step toward the outside air, where the cold touches your face like water from a deep place. The shelter behind you holds heat, smoke, and bodies. The world beyond it holds distance. Nara lowers himself onto a flat stone near the entrance. Not fully outside, not fully in. You sit beside him, close enough to hear his breathing, far enough that your eyes must do their own work. For a while, he says nothing. That is usually how his lessons begin. Speech, for Nara, comes after the world has had its chance. The branch inside the hearth shifts. A soft fall of ash follows. Behind you, Mira whispers something to Sela and is answered with a murmur too low to catch. Tovan turns once in his hide, Ena coughs into her hand. Beyond the shelter, the grass moves in uneven breaths, not the steady movement of wind alone, but the small, uncertain motion of stems loosening after a cold day. The night gathers through sound before it gathers through sight. A low scrape near the storage stones, the tiny settling of the half-burned branch as fire works inward. Farther out, a single call from an animal you cannot see, answered by nothing. Above, wings pass in the dark with a soft rush, and then the low call of geese travels across the ridge, slow and hollow, as if the sky itself has remembered the river. You lift your head without meaning to. The call moves over the camp, fades, returns once in a thinner form, then passes beyond hearing. No one inside the shelter speaks. Even Mira seems to understand that some sounds are not for answering, they are for letting through. Nara's voice comes after the geese have gone. Tell me what is near. You look into the dark. Nearness is not easy now. Day gives shapes. Night gives edges only when fire allows them. The storage stones sit to the left, low and rounded. The grass beyond them moves lightly. The path to the river is only a paler absence through the ground. A bundle of reeds leans under the shelter overhang. The repaired seam holds where Sela checked it, no longer opening a dark mouth to the cold. The stones, you say. The reeds. The path. The lower seam. What else? You listen. At first, your eyes keep trying to do the work. Then, slowly, your attention shifts. Near the storage stones, the scrape comes again, faint and short. Not wind, not settling wood. Something small, perhaps nosing where scraps had been carried too close earlier. Your hand moves toward the stick beside you before you decide to move it. Nara sees. Not yet. You hold still. The scrape comes a third time. A pause follows. Then the soft patter of small feet withdrawing into grass. Whatever it was, it found no easy food or did not like the smell of human nearness. Your hand relaxes. The stick remains where it is. Now? Nara asks. Something small came close and left. Yes. Then it taught and cost nothing. The answer settles beside you. You had thought watching meant stopping things. Perhaps sometimes it means letting a small thing come, learn, and leave without spending more strength than the moment deserves. Inside, Sela moves near the hearth. She turns the fat bowl upside down after wiping it, setting the greasy grass aside for morning flame. Mira sits up despite being told to sleep and watches her. Can I help? You can lie down. That is not helping. It helps me not speak again. Mira lowers herself slowly, making obedience into a performance. Tovan, without lifting his head, says, Your lying down is very loud. You are not asleep, she says. I am practicing. Sela's shadow passes over both of them. Practice better. The shelter softens around the exchange. It is not laughter exactly, only the low warmth that follows familiar correction. You feel it from the entrance, and the feeling reaches you as strongly as the root did. The people behind you are not quiet because the world is safe. They are quiet because many small forms of care stand between them and what is not safe. Nara shifts his weight. His knee gives a small sound, and he rubs it once. Age appears again, then hides itself. Your eyes followed the path first. You wait, because this may be correction. That is good, he says. But the path is where you expect danger to walk. You look toward the storage stones. Yes, he says, though you have not spoken. Need does not always use a path. The words enter more deeply than they would have at dawn. Need does not always use a path. Hunger comes through a seam. Cold enters under hide. A mistake hides inside a smooth spear shaft. A lesson arrives through an ugly flake. A memory falls from a pouch edge and becomes a bead in a child's hands. The day has been saying the same thing in many materials. The half-burned branch inside the hearth gives a small glow as fire reaches a pocket under the bark. Light strengthens briefly along the shelter floor, touching feet, tools, the marked stone, the bead, Iru's sleeping hand, Sela's bent back, then it lowers again. Nothing dramatic happens. The branch continues becoming night warmth by losing itself slowly. Nara points with 2 fingers toward the branch. When that side lowers, turn it. You nod. Not too soon. You almost smile. Everything here has a before and an after, and foolishness lives on both sides of the right moment. Time passes without being counted. The camp enters deeper rest by degrees. Toven's breathing grows heavier and loses its claim of practice. Mira finally sleeps, one hand near her chest where the bead had hung. Sela remains awake longest among those not on watch, then settles with her back against a rolled hide, eyes closed but not fully gone from the world. Iru sleeps near the marked stone, his mended pouch tucked under one hand. You watch the storage stones, the path, the lower seam, the grass where the small animal withdrew. The cold finds your fingers, then your wrists. You tuck one hand under your arm and leave the other free near the stick. Nara notices and shifts a small warmed stone toward you with his foot. You take it in your palm. The heat is faint but real. It fills the hollow of your hand, and your fingers close around it without pride. Earlier you might have refused because being chosen for watch felt like being tested, and being tested seemed to require not needing comfort. Now the day has made that thought look childish. Warm hands watch better than numb ones. Good, Nara says. The single word rests in the dark. The branch lowers on the near side. You wait a little, then take the long stick and reach toward it. Nara does not stop you. The burned wood resists the first pressure, then turns, opening its darker side toward the coals. A quiet red line appears along the bark. Smoke rises, bends, and finds the repaired opening above. Inside, one of the smaller children turns in sleep and coughs once. Sela's eyes open immediately. The child settles before she moves. Her eyes close again. The camp resumes breathing. Above the ridge, the geese call once more, farther away now. The sound is lower, almost swallowed by distance. You cannot see them. You can only feel the line of their passing through the dark, the way the call arrives, loosens, and disappears. The world beyond the fire is full of movement that does not belong to you, yet your listening belongs to it for this stretch of night. Nara stands slowly. Wake Kesh after the branch settles again. You look at him. You are leaving? To sleep before my knees become stone. He places a hand briefly on the shelter rib as he rises fully. The new willow holds under the touch. His eyes move toward the seam, the fire, the storage stones, then back to you. Watch what changes. It is not a grand instruction. It is the only one needed. He steps inside and lowers himself near the wall with a controlled heaviness that reveals more tiredness than he would ever name. For the first time since waking, you sit at the entrance without him beside you. The space feels larger. The dark does not change, but your place inside it does. You listen. The branch works through its dark side. The storage stones remain still. The lower seam holds. Grass moves, then settles. A small night insect touches your wrist and leaves. Behind you, Nara's breathing joins the others, slower than Tovan's, rougher than Mira's, lighter than Iru's. Each breath is a thread in the shelter's woven sleep. Your hand closes around the warmed stone. Its heat fades slowly, not gone yet, not strong either. The watch becomes less a test than a form of holding fire in its proper hunger, holding the edge of sleep away from your eyes, holding the camp inside attention while the camp releases itself into rest. The geese are gone now. Their last call thins beyond the dark ridge, leaving only the night air, the low branch, and the red line of fire moving carefully through wood. Chapter 12. What the day was for. The last call of the geese fades beyond the dark ridge, leaving the night larger and softer in its absence. For a few breaths, the sound remains in your body after the air has lost it. It sits somewhere behind your ribs, low and hollow, like a path continuing where eyes cannot follow. Then even that thins, and only the camp remains. The branch across the hearth has burned deeper into itself. Its dark end is no longer dark. A red line runs along the split wood, opening and lowering as the fire eats slowly through the grain. You sit at the shelter entrance with the warmed stone in your palm, its heat nearly gone. Your fingers closed around it because letting go would mean admitting how cold your hand has become. Behind you, the shelter breathes with sleeping bodies. Tovan's breathing is heavy and uneven. Mira's is lighter, sometimes interrupted by a small sound in the throat, as if a dream has asked her a question she does not yet know how to answer. Iru sleeps near the marked stone, one hand curled beside the old pouch. Sela rests with her back against a rolled hide, eyes closed, face angled toward the hearth, as if even sleep cannot fully turn her away from work. The lower seam holds. You look at it often because Nara told you to watch what changes, and what does not change may matter just as much. The seam that let cold through in the morning now lies darkened with fat, closed against the night air. The willow ribs hold under the hide, the cord knots remain tight. Smoke finds the repaired opening and leaves instead of wandering low across the sleeping faces. Beside the hearth, the objects of the day have gathered without anyone arranging them as a lesson. The clean flake you struck from the core rests near a hide strip trimmed into ties. Tovan's thicker flake lies beside scraped root skins, ugly and useful. The empty fat bowl sits upside down, wiped bright inside by dry grass saved for morning flame. The bead lies beside the red marks on stone. Mira's small practice hide, stained at one edge by her finger, has been tucked near Sela's bundle instead of thrown away. Nothing announces what these things mean. They simply remain. A small movement comes from the storage stones. You turn your head, hand reaching toward the stick, but the sound is only a loosened reed sliding against another as the night air changes. Still, you wait. The grass beyond the stones moves, then settles. No feet approach. No eyes shine beyond the firelight. The camp returns to stillness, and you let your hand rest again. Kesh should be woken soon. Nara told you to wake him after the branch settled again, and the branch is nearly there. Yet you do not rise at once, not from disobedience, from the wish to understand the exact moment when now becomes later. Too early wastes another person's sleep. Too late leaves your own attention thin. The right moment is a narrow place, like the angle in stone before a flake leaves cleanly. The branch lowers. Ash gathers along its side. You reach with the long stick and turn it once more, only a little, giving the red line enough air without making the flame too hungry. It answers with a faint strengthening, then settles into a steady glow. Nara would not call it perfect. He might call it enough. Enough has become one of the day's most important words. You rise carefully, keeping the warmed stone in one hand so it does not fall and wake anyone. Kesh sleeps near the inner wall with one arm over his chest, his fingers still slightly curled as if holding the reed he used earlier to draw animal movement in dirt. You crouch beside him and touch his shoulder. His eyes open quickly. For a moment he is nowhere. Then the shelter returns to him. Fire, hide roof, sleeping bodies. Your face close in the red light. He nods before you speak. The branch settled, you whisper. He sits up, rubbing one hand over his mouth. Anything near? Something small came and left. The stones held. Kesh receives this as proper speech, not too much, not too little. He takes his outer hide from beside him and wraps it around his shoulders. When he stands, his knees crack softly. He glances toward the hearth, then toward the entrance, then back at you. Sleep before Sela sees you trying to become Nara. The words are low enough not to wake the camp, and kind enough not to be mockery. You pass him the warmed stone. Its heat is almost gone, but he accepts it anyway and closes his hand around it as if the last of warmth is still worth keeping. Your place at the entrance becomes his. The change happens without ceremony. One body rises, another sits. One pair of eyes releases the dark, another receives it. The camp remains held. Inside the shelter, space waits for you near the hearth. Not a large space. No one here owns much emptiness. You lower yourself beside the rolled hide, careful not to disturb Mira's foot where it has escaped from under her covering. The ground is hard under your hip. The heat from the coals touches one side of your face. Your body, which had been holding itself upright through duty, begins to understand that duty has passed on. Sela's eyes open. You freeze, though you have done nothing wrong. She looks at you, then at Kesh's shape by the entrance, then at the fire. Her hand emerges from under her hide and pushes a folded skin toward you. Under your shoulder, she murmurs. I have enough. Her eyes remain on you. You take the folded skin and place it where she indicated. The comfort is immediate and embarrassing. Sela closes her eyes again, having won without needing to speak twice. Across the hearth, Mira shifts in sleep. Her hand moves to her chest, finds no bead there, and opens against the hide. For a moment, her fingers search, then they relax. Perhaps even asleep, she remembers returning it. Perhaps the body only seeks the weight it carried for a while and lets it go when it does not find it. Near the wall, the bead waits beside the marked stone, pale side turned toward the low fire. Eru wakes enough to cough once into his hand. Kesh turns from the entrance, listening, but the old man settles before help is needed. Eru's fingers move toward the pouch, touching its mended edge. The movement is so small that only someone lying near the hearth would see it. His hand rests there, and sleep takes him back. You look at your own hands in the firelight. The day has left them crowded. Ash darkens the creases. Ochre lingers at the side of the thumb. Fat has softened the skin near the nail. A shallow cord mark crosses two fingers. A tiny cut from the flake has dried near the knuckle, so small it will be gone before anyone remembers it. These are not wounds worth naming. They are the day written on skin. In the morning, your hands searched ash for a coal no larger than your nail. They carried bark, reeds, willow, stone, hide, fat, bead, cord, and warmth. They made mistakes. They held too hard, pressed too soon, scraped unevenly, learned where to stop. They were corrected by Sela, guided by Nara, watched by Mira, challenged by Tovan, trusted for a moment by Eru. They did not become great hands in a single day. They became less careless. That is something. The thought arrives without pride. It rests the way an ember rests under ash, small and alive, not asking to become flame yet. Near the entrance, Kesh shifts. All still, he says softly, perhaps to you, perhaps to himself. All still, you answer. The words are almost swallowed by the shelter. They do not need to travel far. Stillness here is not emptiness. It is repaired hide holding back cold. It is a banked branch saving heat for later. It is food sorted, tools placed near hands, children asleep among people who have watched them all day. It is the small animal that came near and left because the storage stones were guarded well enough. It is the ridge waiting without being forgotten. Tovin turns in his sleep and knocks the unfinished cord from his stomach. It slips to the ground beside him. Mira stirs at the sound but does not wake. You reach across and pick up the cord, laying it near his hand where he will find it in the morning and perhaps pretend he never lost it. The gesture makes you smile in the dark. The fire lowers again. Kesh tends it from the entrance side, using the same care Nara used, though his hands have their own rhythm. The half-burned branch has become several smaller glowing places. He does not feed it too much. Night still has hours to cross. Later is hungry, Nara said, and the phrase returns now with the truth of a thing learned by many people before you. You close your eyes for a breath, then open them because the habit of watch has not fully released you. The shelter roof curves above, held by the willow rods you helped bend. In daylight, their pale surfaces showed under the lifted hide. Now they are mostly shadow, visible only where fire catches an edge. Hidden strength, work covered by the thing it supports, like the roots underground, like the sinew inside a binding, like the memory inside a bead, like the coal inside ash. The world has become quiet enough for small warmth to matter. Seela's breathing deepens at last. Eru's hand remains near the pouch. Mira's fingers rest open where the bead had been. Tovin's hand finds the cord you placed beside him and closes around it without waking. Kesh sits at the entrance, his back steady, his head turned slightly toward the storage stones. Nara sleeps near the wall, one knee bent, one hand lying open as if even rest has not taken all readiness from him. You feel the day gather behind your eyes, but not as a line of events. It comes as textures: bark cup, cold grass, bent reed, willow under pressure, hide rasp, stone note, warm root, ochre dust, fat in the seam, bead hole, branch smoke, goose call. Each one touches the next without needing to explain itself. This, then, is what the day was for. Not the hunt alone, not the track alone, not the tool, the mark, the shelter, the food, the watch, the child's question, or the elder's memory alone. The day was for all of it held together long enough for people to sleep under a roof that still stood, beside a fire that still lived, with tomorrow not yet solved but not yet feared. You turn onto your side. The folded skin under your shoulder keeps the ground from pressing too sharply. Heat from the hearth reaches your face, then fades, then returns when the branch shifts. Your hands open beside you, palms toward the fire, no longer holding stone, cord, hide, or coal. At the edge of sleep, Kesh's low voice comes once more from the entrance. All still. This time you do not answer aloud. The words settle inside you, and the camp settles with them.